let's hop right into the stream, which is entitled The Council of Nicaea Explained, the Vote That Changed Jesus Forever. Now, I know a lot of you guys have heard about the Council of Nicaea. Most of you are so smart that this is going to be a bunch of information that's basically ain't going to be nothing you learning new. It's just going to re-solidify and reinforce what you already had, which is a good thing too. Okay, so like and share on your way in. And yeah, again, shout out to everyone. I'm going to just acknowledge the chat room a minute because I see the elder Baba Rasan in the house. And you know off the back, we got to drop a bomb and clap it up for the elder Baba Rasan live. Let's do that now. For the elder, man. And whenever you see Baba Rasan anywhere, you just put some respect on his name because, you know, the elder put in a lot of work for his people, man. Real talk. And we just love him. And I just want y'all to go and sub to Baba Rasan and follow him over there as well. You're going to learn a lot and you're going to laugh a lot. Right? He one of the real ones that's out here doing it. Ram Ham, thank you for becoming a benevolent bishop. Let's clap it up for that. Thank you, Ram. I appreciate that. But I'm not gonna keep you guys for a long intro because I want to spend most of the time teaching. So let me hop right on into this thing for y'all and give you what you came for. So one thing we got to realize about the Council of Nicaea, because a lot of people think they know everything about it, but if you're still a Christian after learning about the Council of Nicaea, chances are you haven't been taught properly about it. Before I start, excuse me, I would like to borrow something from a great teacher by the name of Dr. Ray Hagins, who was the one who first taught me about the Council of Nicaea. Ray Hagins, I'm going to borrow this from you. Thank you so much for this. I want everyone to hold their hands into a circle position, please, before we start. Everyone make a circle with your hand. Make your circle. And repeat after me. Everything I know and everything I think I know is represented by the inside of this circle. Everything I know and everything I think I know is represented by the inside of this circle. And I must keep in mind that there are more things to know than what's inside of my little circle right here. So that circle represents everything you think you know, and everything around that represents more information you can know if you're able to open your mind, your circle. You can fit more stuff in it, ain't that right? Look at this. Right. You can fit more stuff in it. Don't close your mind. Don't cook because you don't know everything, and there's a lot more to know if you're willing to open your mind. So we're just going to start there, and now let's begin. So the Council of Nicaea was a pivotal event in early Christian history, and it shaped the doctrine of Jesus Christ as understood in mainstream Christianity. It was convened by the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great. We got to mention him, Constantine, of course. And it was in the city of Nicaea, which would be modern day Turkey to people who do traveling. And the council addressed theological disputes, particularly concerning the nature of Jesus Christ, okay? Let's give you a little eye candy while I read my notes here, and I memorized most of these. But it established a foundation in the Christian doctrine as we know it today or it established foundational Christian doctrines. But the key issues at the Council of Nicaea was centered all around one man, and you don't hear much about him in history. His name was Arius. He was such a rebel rouser during his time that they gave him the nickname, the heretic. I want people to listen up before we get into Arius. I need your ears. I need your mind. I need everyone to like and share this video. I'm about to really go in deep. This is going to be very good to share with your Christian family members. Let's get it. You know, normally when history know you as a certain title, that meant that you was really about what they saying you about. Like if they say Sanchez the fighter or such and such the shooter. All right, it carries weight. His name was Arius the heretic. Now, we all know what a heretic was during the time of the old church. It was anybody that was going against what the church was doing. All right, so today they would call you a non-believer, sinner, whatever. The common term in the day was heretic. Check it out. The most known heretic in Christian history, considered as the bane of Christianity, was excommunicated for his teaching against the divinity of Christ, that the Son was not equal to the Father, but he still gained a large following. This led the church to convene the first ecumenical Council of Nicaea in 325, which defined the divinity of Christ, thus giving us the Nicene Creed. This is very important. The entire Council of Nicaea was called for this one man. That's right. So Arius would have been like the Adolf to the church. This one man made all of the leaders of the church come together and say, man, we got to do something about him because we are not going to be able to grow if he can keep challenging our theologies and mysticism and proving that we're charlatans. What I'm going to teach you guys today is beyond the Council of Nicaea. I'm going to teach you who the real Christians were and who the synagogue of Satan is that the Bible speak about. And guess what? You're going to realize most of you following the synagogue of Satan and not the real Christ. Now check this out. It was because of Arius that they called the entire council together. And what you got to realize is that we have something called the United Nations. And with the United Nations, every country in the world came together against the man with the ugly mustache. You know his name. I don't want to say it too many times. But that's because he was really a threat. What he had was powerful. What he had could dismantle every government. They telling you it was some crazy weapon, but really, guess what it was? The truth. That's right. He had the truth. And that's what Arius had. And just like the dude with the crazy mustache brought together every nation in the world to go against him. Every bishop around the world that was the leader of a church had to come together, do something about Arius. And why? And we finna go into all of that. Now, let's point something out very important. That the entire Council of Nicaea only happened because of this one guy. So exactly who was he and what was he teaching that made the church go such drastic measures as we read in the Nicene Council? But before we get into Arius and answer all those questions, let's talk about what that council was. Now, before we get deep into the Nicene Council, I'll briefly touch about Arius just to show you why it was called, then we're going to hop back into the council. So remember that the reason Arius was called a heretic is because he challenged the divinity of Christ. Now, I want to take a minute to show my thumbnail. On the left, we see a regular Jesus Christ, like a regular mortal man. On the right, we see this glorified version of Christ that's like anointed with light and all of that. That's for a reason, because the things you need to know is that during the time of Arius, there was a God called Christ or Christus, but it wasn't the same Jesus that you know today. It was slightly different version of him. And that, let me show you that version. During the time of Arius, this is the version of Jesus Christ that everyone knew at that time. But Jesus didn't have the name Jesus during his time. His name was Serapis. And here he is. The God that you guys call Jesus Christ today, before the Council of Nicaea, excuse my throat, guys, or you can see that I'm recovering. I'm a bit like under the weather, so excuse me. I hope me clearing my throat don't turn you guys off of the knowledge. Let me clear it one more time. So check me out now. The God we call Jesus Christ today wasn't called Jesus Christ before the Council of Nicaea. This is important. You're going to see what the council was all about and why Arius was such a threat. You see, during the time of before the Council of Nicaea, the God y'all calling Jesus Christ today was called Serapis Christus, and the cup on his head, remember, Jesus said, "My cup overfloweth." So during the time of Arius, this would have been who Christians followed. And Serapis, right, would have been everything you say about Christ today, only except, this is where it get crazy, right? When we say Jesus or Serapis is a God, yeah. See, during the time of before the Council of Nicaea, right? Jesus was a God, but he was just another God on the Greek pantheon. That's right. Oh, buddy, this is where it gets fun. This is where it gets fun. See, there was a form of Jesus Christ before the modern day Jesus Christ, but the name was Serapis Christus, and it was a Greco-Egyptian god. And guess what, guys? This god was just another god on the Greek pantheon, along with Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and the rest of them. The concept that we got today of one God, King of kings, Lord of lords, the God of gods, that's new. Before Constantine, there was no concept of everybody just worshiping Jesus Christ. Before Constantine, if you follow the church didn't have no Jesus Christ. They had an entire Greek pantheon of gods. You better go and research this now. I ain't gonna play with you. The papacy that you know today, that got the whole world worshiping this monotheistic God called Christ. Prior to Constantine, the church wasn't even monotheistic, guys. Let's talk about it. Prior to Constantine, if you were following the Caesars, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and tithing to the Greek temples, if you were living pre-Constantine, then you worship Jesus as just another God of many other gods. He was just one of many. And in one name, when Jesus, then it was Serapis. See, back in them days, Christians weren't called Christians. They were members of the church. And that's why I told you I'm not a church member. Christians are still called church members today. Singular. What's the church? That's the papacy. And what Christians don't realize is that they unified the whole Greek pantheon behind a new God that y'all calling Jesus Christ today. And that's why Jesus got 12 disciples. You know why? Because before Constantine, there were 12 major Greek gods on the pantheon, and Jesus was one of them. And all of these gods came as a doggone pair. You couldn't take one without the other one. That meant that you couldn't pick and choose. You took them all or none because all of these gods complemented and work together with each other to describe the forces of nature. This is how the church, this is the pseudoscience of the church back in the day. You know, before what you got is Jesus Christ and the modern day churches and all the clapping and shout. I'm giving you some now. Check it out. So before Constantine, if you were a church member back then, you would have had a long list of gods, and it wouldn't have been Christ and 12 disciples. It would have been Christ among the whole pantheon of the 12. Give or take is 13, but that's like the constellations with Ophiuchus because they embody in that as well. But check me out. Before Jesus had 12 disciples that he was head over, he was just one of the disciples that was following around the North Pole. All of the constellations are going around the North Pole. And the original God that represented the North Pole was Santa, Satan, Aten, Odin. We'll go in. That's another lecture. Let's keep it on the Council of Nicaea. We ain't got to do that to do this. Now watch this, right? Jesus with 12 disciples was originally Jesus as a God among a pantheon of gods, and they all was equal. In fact, that I'm wrong about that. During that time, Zeus was the head of all the gods. That's what it was. That's right. So in Olympia, which was where the Greek gods reside, right? Olympia, where the Greek gods reside, right? Hold on, everybody, hold on. So in Olympia, where the Greek gods reside, right? Zeus was the highest one. Zeus was the highest in the pantheon of the Greek gods. And this is what the early church was about. Like the church didn't always have this concept of one Jesus Christ and then everyone just worshiped Jesus to get to the Father. That's new. All right. And so I can't stress this enough before we go deep, that the church was polytheistic with a Greek pantheon, and Jesus was just one God on that pantheon. And Jesus' name was Zeus Serapis. So what did I just tell you? That the highest God among the Greek pantheon was who? Zeus. And that's why Jesus is King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Zeus Serapis was the original God of gods, King of Kings. But the reason I'm trying to show you that when it say I am God alone and all that, no, that's some new stuff. Because it was no concept of I am God alone. It was always Zeus among a multitude of Greek gods. But it was said that he was the highest of the gods. So we got to keep this in mind. This is pre-Constantine. And let's go ahead and continue reading. So before I can go into the Arian controversy, on why Arius was the man that initiated the Council of Nicaea, why he was such a threat, you got to understand what the church was doing. The church was going from polytheism to monotheism. The church was going away from the worship of many, many Greek gods, and they was looking for one God that can sum up all of those different gods. In other words, the church was consolidating itself. And the church was because the Christian church wasn't always monotheistic like what you see today. It was polytheistic at first. That's right. Now, the thing about this right here, and I'm gonna read this to you. See, when the church was trying to go from polytheism to monotheistic doctrines, they had to create this new God that will rise from among the ranks of the whole Greek pantheon and kind of overshadow that pantheon for days to come. This is the church idea. They were saying, listen, we need to go away from the worship of many different gods, and we basically need to consolidate the wind god, the sun god, the moon god, all of these different gods, the flower god, the poop god, the spit god, the doggone eye blinking god. You know, but they were saying, look, we need to consolidate all of these gods under one big main God of gods, and that'll be better for our organization. Because when the church was going around on crusades and they was trying to indoctrinate people with their programming, they had to indoctrinate them with 12 different times. Why, Sanchez? Because they got to make you believe in 12 different gods, bro. You know how much work that is? Imagine this, right? Today, all they got to do is make you believe in one God that controls everything. Money, weather, good, bad, all of that forces of nature is summed up in Christ. But before Christ, the church literally had to indoctrinate you with 12 different gods for 12 different aspects of your life. Money, weather, your sexual stuff. Your health was a different God. Everything was a different God. So if you going on world crusades trying to indoctrinate people, that's a headache, man. It's a headache just to indoctrinate you with one God. So now so think about that. So they said, look, we got to go, because when we going around the world, these other cultures got one personification of the all. And here we is trying to let everybody remember all 12 of our gods when it's easy to just remember one good one than 12 mediocre ones. That's right. It's easier to remember one big heroic legendary figure than 12 little, like, he controlled the weather, he controlled the fire, he controlled the dirt. You be like, hey, which God control money again? I need a money blessing. I forgot what was his name. So they said, look, we need to consolidate. Polytheism is not the way. It's really not what's up for what we're trying to bring in when it come to world conquest and all that. We got to consolidate. We need a kick-ass God. He need to rise above all of these other Greek gods with all power in his hand over everything. And so that's what the Council of Nicaea did. It took the church from polytheism to monotheism, and prior to the church calling this council, Jesus would have just been another God among many other gods, but he would have had a higher status in the pantheon, but he still would have had to compete with other gods who control other stuff. He wasn't all powerful, as we say today, because other gods shared some power over the forces of nature as well on the pantheon. Check. All right, so now we see, now with that out the way, Why does this bring Arius into being? Because when the church was trying to go from polytheism to monotheism, they had to reintroduce a new God, and they had to formulate a mythological story surrounding this new God and how he rose above the rest and the pantheon. And that was the first concept of us going into the virgin birth, immaculate conception, because the church said, listen, basically the father in heaven was Zeus Serapis. The father that y'all calling in heaven, that was Jesus's original form right here, which is called Serapis. When they said Jesus was born from the Father, our modern concept of Jesus Christ it came from his original version called Zeus Serapis, which is why the name Jesus is Jesus. So Jesus' original form is the Father, and his most recent form is the Son. Okay? This is why Arius was a threat, because Arius was saying, listen, but hold up, before I go into Arius, let me finish with this father-son thing before I get all over the place. So listen. The Father rules in heaven. That's because Jesus' original form, Zeus Serapis, the Greek gods then intervened with man, and they didn't come to the earth. Let me explain something to y'all. Please listen up. Jesus, prior to Council of Nicaea, never came to the earth. There was no such thing as Jesus coming through the earth through Virgin Mary before Nicaea and Constantine. The original form of Christ before the virgin birth and all that was Zeus Serapis, and it was taught that Zeus was just another god that dwelt in Olympia. And back then, the church had a very bougie concept of this god, that he was too good to come mingle with man. See, the church had a bougie beginning, and all of they Greek gods and they pantheon looked at man like scum. And they looked at man like, oh, how dare us go down there and eat with them and sleep with them. This is what's the Greek concept of the gods. But they had to redo that because the church was losing popularity. Because what other people around the world had was earth gods that was down to earth, like Geb, Camazotz. They had gods around the world that was mingling with man doing normal human stuff. And these gods were rock stars among the people. But see, the church had this long pantheon of bougie-ass gods. So the church, so let me explain something to you. The church said we need us a God to go down to the earth. We need to copy what we see happening in the jungles and the tribes. Let me break some down to y'all, right? Zeus Serapis never came to the earth, and this was Jesus' first form. The God you calling Jesus Christ, in his first form before Nicaea, there was no virgin birth and him coming to no earth through a woman. It was just no one created the gods, and they all dwell in Olympia, and they never come to the earth. So that's out the way. Now, so why is Arius such a threat to this new transition? Because Arius is coming along saying, hey, man, that's a statue. He wasn't born of a woman. He was made and not begotten. And that's why they call the Council of Nicaea, because the whole Council of Nicaea was for the church to come together and say, listen, we losing popularity, we losing momentum. If we don't do something now, these other cultures gonna run the world in the next couple centuries. So the church had to copy what they saw was working around the world. And what they did, they got out of their bouginess. They created this. See, because what was happening in the world, around the world, you had all of these tribes that was worshiping down to earth gods, and these earth gods that dwelled among man, they smoked with us, drank with us like Jesus did, and they still had powers though. And that wasn't the case in the old church. Their gods had power, but they didn't come to earth and interfere with man. They sort of stood outside the earth doing abracadabra to work their powers separated from man. And this was working against the church, because you had these all-powerful gods that was sitting right there next to you like, what's up, man? You can hit me up on the phone. I'm available to you anytime. Call me up. I'm your homeboy. When the church had these bougie-ass gods that you couldn't pray to, you couldn't ask them for help, and the church had to change if they wanted to compete. So this is how Jesus started to be created. So please share this video. Stuff like this should be viral, man. You ain't gonna get this nowhere else. But check this out, right? So why Arius was such a big threat is because the church had to come with a new doctrine to say that Jesus was born from a virgin and he walked on the earth and dwelled with man in the flesh with all power in his hand. That was what they swore to, and that's the form of Christ that everybody worship today. That's right. If you are a Christian, you gotta believe the Nicene Creed, which is that Jesus was virgin born, God came into the flesh, walked the earth among man with all power in his hand. And that was an old concept that predated Christ, but it was the church now coming into something we already was doing. So what Arius was doing, Arius was saying, oh man, this is phony. Look at the church, basically. They're trying to change now. Look at the church. Look, they're trying to say that this God, Jesus, was born through a woman, when at first they were saying he was just a bougie god in Olympia. That's right. And this is why Arius was such a threat. Arius was going around saying, you see what they doing? They copying, they copying off everybody. Arius was blowing the cover. Arius was going around and saying, this new God that they got, he was never begotten from a woman. He was made by man. All of the Greek gods were man-made mythologies and beliefs. But the original concept of the God of gods was simply the mind that governs the body. That's a whole nother lecture. When Christ said, ye are gods, because before Constantine, everybody else beside that wasn't in the church, basically all of them people was teaching that we are gods and we are, quote unquote, Christ. And the church never was teaching people that they were gods. It was teaching them that they were peasants and that they need to pay their tithes and offerings to different gods. And the church had people paying their tithes and offerings to weather gods, money gods. It depends on what you want. If you know what kind of blessing you want, that's the God you paid to. But the church consolidated all those to one God that you pay for everything. And that was genius. So, Arius was a threat because he was blowing the cover, letting the world know, man, look, the church coming late with their monotheism. You know that God that they had called Serapis Zeus? They saying he's born of a virgin now. They saying he's begotten. And Arius was laughing like they trying to copy basically. Because think about it. All of our ancestors taught that we are gods. And if all of us are gods, guess what that means? We were born from a woman. We were begotten and not made by the hands of man, which would be a statue, a pagan, a graven image. You had graven images and you had God in the flesh. That's what you had. And God in the flesh was regular indigenous humans with a soul, not mankind. Let me say that again. God dwelling on earth in the flesh is Sanchez. God dwelling on the earth in the flesh is all of y'all. I think, therefore I am, who Christ was talking to. Ye are gods. Everybody ain't created equally. You got some other kind of creatures here. And guess what? They worship graven images, which these graven images connects them to their concept of God, not ours. Doggone Sanchez, you always confuse us when you're doing good. Check this out, man. This is what, the church represent the government system, peasant system, money, taxation, paying tithes. And the church wasn't always popular because they was polytheistic and they couldn't get enough money donated to the church through tithes and offerings because people was spreading that money thin through a pantheon of different gods. Do you see what I'm saying? In order for the church to grow to what we see today and get people to buy into it, they had to consolidate their images. But before we go to this, let me stay with the Council of Nicaea. I don't want to talk about humanoids. We're going to do that in another one. But Constantine wasn't a human. He was a humanoid. See, all of these bishops that you see, they were aliens with elongated skulls. The hat that they wearing, basically they were part of a technological priesthood of humanoids. And they come from Egypt. This whole papacy and original church come from Egypt, where money was created, religion was created, taxation, peasants, rich and poor. That come from people being dumbed down, believing in these gods and paying tithes to them. This is how the original dynasties enriched themselves and rose to power in Egypt and in Greece. That's why Serapis is a Greco-Egyptian god. That's right. I know what I'm talking about. So when you see them with all these hats on, just keep in mind that them hats would have been some kind of technology to make them transhuman. And that their spiritual system was different than indigenous people's spiritual system. Why? Our spiritual system already taught a concept about God coming into the flesh. And that was me and you. Listen, man. The whole concept of God coming down from heaven and getting a body, that's you becoming a baby being born. Indigenous people already knew the story of God becoming flesh, and it was us, ye are gods. But the people who didn't fall from heaven, they are humanoids, non-player characters, and they got elongated heads. This was the priesthood of Nicaea. There were two different kind of people on the earth. And that's why the church, in order for the humanoids to grow their religious system, they had to mimic the kind of spiritual systems that the gods had. That's what I'm telling y'all. But I ain't gonna go deep into this aspect yet with the humanoids. I want you to just know that, keep that in mind though. But that's why they had to say, well, he was born and he was begotten and not made, because we were making humanoids with our hands. Think about this, man. These graven images that people were worshiping weren't just statues that didn't move. They were literally robots like what Elon Musk is making, graven images. It's a scripture in the Bible that said that they worship images of metal and iron, of shiny silver. And if you pull up a humanoid, you will see transhumanism been around. The church religious system is basically a transhuman movement of people. Their God is a hive mind, a Borg. And that's why their God's will can't be done unless his spirit indwell in you. Because robots don't have free will. See what I'm saying? So check this out, right? But hear what I'm saying. I don't want to be all over the place. I'm going to read the super chats and all that at the end. But check it out. The graven images were said to speak and walk and all of that. And people will try to make up stuff about that. And what I'm telling you is, yes, you have graven images that are called statues. But these graven images also represent humanoids, meaning, people that's half machine. Like, that's why you see the pharaohs with cups on their head and stuff. You had people becoming more merged with technology even back then. And so these gods that cheated death, they created a religious system to make man worship them, and that was what the Greek pantheon was. It was taking the power for humans, and if a human wanted to know how weather was controlled, then the AI would tell them some god in the sky made the thunder happen. If the human wanted to know why I'm not having good luck with my finances, then the AI would tell them it's because you're not tithing enough to the god of money. You need to tithe enough to the god of money. And what the AI is doing is the people who ain't got no money, they telling them you ain't giving enough money. So you see the mind game? It's a good way to solve the problem because it keep the person going back. Like, if I just keep donating, that blessing gonna come like a slot machine. If I keep playing it, I'm gonna hit the jackpot one day. It's all the same subconscious programming. Now check this out, right? The people that was trying to create a new spiritual system under the papacy and the church weren't humans. It was a spiritual war going on earth for the souls of man. And AI wanted to harvest the souls of man, but the only access to the souls of man is through the spiritual system. So the original spiritual system that AI created, the synthetic spiritual system, is what we call religion. And it was AI response to spirituality, religion versus spirituality. It's basically AI versus man. Man versus mankind, God versus the devil. The synthetic or sinful ones versus the original ones. Religion versus spirituality. And religion is basically an adoption system into an ancient tech cult that when you start going into that, they teaching you basically to become one with this God, Yaldabaoth, this demigod. And basically submit your mind, all that. Don't lean into your own mind. Basically become a zombie, a drone online into this ancient cult. But check it out. Now that we got this out the way, now you see why Arius was such a threat. Because for the church to mimic organic spiritual systems, they had to do away with their polytheistic Greek pantheon and bougie concepts of gods and blend in with indigenous people's teaching about God and the flesh being just a regular human trying to overcome temptation, right? So this is what Constantine them adopted, and they left that Greek pantheon. And in order for them to leave it, it was one problem. They had to now teach that a God that was self-created didn't create himself now. They had to demote their God just to promote him in the end. And that's why Jesus came to the earth to die and rise up again in the mythology. Because the church, when Jesus came to the earth, his name was Zeus Serapis. Excuse me, I said that wrong. Before Jesus came to the earth, his name was Zeus Serapis. And the reason he didn't come to the earth yet, because the story that they was teaching about Zeus Serapis was that he's just a god in Olympia. And it was taught that the gods in Olympia didn't dwell among man and that they don't come down to the earth. But the church was moving away from that bougie concept, and they wanted their gods to come dwell with man. So they chose Zeus Serapis to be the god to come down to the earth and dwell with man. And so that they can say, well, we do have a God that's God of gods, that's just like you and conquered temptation in the flesh. He was a mortal man. and he ascended back up to the top of the Greek pantheon in Olympia after his earth trip. Because prior to that, the church didn't have no gods that came to the earth. All of their gods was just bougie and stuck up. What do you mean stuck up? Stuck up there in the heavens in Olympia. And people wasn't rocking with that. People wanted a God they can relate to. Let me tell you something. If the church was going to go around the world on world conquest and indoctrinate other people, they wasn't going to do it with a Greek pantheon full of polytheistic gods. That wasn't going to happen because indigenous people didn't have a bunch of gods. They had a concept of one supreme deity, and that was mind over matter. A man's mind was his God. As a man thinketh, so is he. That predate the Bible. They stole all of this when they created Christ, when they was trying to bring these indigenous concepts into the church. But back to this, right? So these Greek gods was never begotten. They were man-made mythologies that were supported by statues. Okay? They were never begotten. That was too bougie for them to be born through a woman, and they hated women. So that's what Jesus Christ was, the church attempt to create a rock star. And they said, you know what? We need to rebrand ourselves, and we need one God that ain't bougie as hell. We need a God that go down there and eat with the poor people and be among the crowd. And that was Jesus, and it worked. And ever since that Council of Nicaea, Jesus been one of the most popular gods in the world, and he haven't existed that long. The Council of Nicaea wasn't that long ago, but it was just the fact that the church had a lot of power and money. They just didn't have the right concept to become popular. And so what they found out was we're going to have to incorporate some of the stuff these people already got if we're going to indoctrinate them with some they don't got. Okay? And Jesus was the result of that. So the Father in heaven is Zeus Serapis. That's Jesus's first form that could never come down to the earth. Let me tell you what the church did. The church said, we're going to take this God, Zeus Serapis, and turn him into a completely new God called Jesus Christ. And that Jesus Christ is going to be a God that dwell among man, and he's begotten through a woman. And they got rid of the concept of Zeus Serapis. They tried to hide his form altogether. But if people want to know where if somebody say, Mommy, where did Jesus come from? They gonna say the Virgin Mary. But the real answer is Jesus come from God the Father. Because if you read the Bible, they tell you that Jesus is just God the Father becoming flesh. And that's exactly what happened in the papacy in the early church. None of the Greek gods had become flesh in their mythology. Again, they were these bougie ass spirits in the sky, and they never come down and intermingle with man. And that worked against the church when it tried to spread itself, because people didn't like bougie gods. So in order for the church to grow, they had to come with a God that was begotten from a mother. And that took off. People flocked to it. It became, here we are today with Jesus being the popular God. But if you read the Quran, what do the Muslims teach? That Jesus is just another prophet. The word prophet is the lowercase g, or another God in the pantheon. That's right. You never had a concept of a capital G in religion, because the capital G are living fleshly gods like you and me, whose names is written in all caps. There was no capital G's in religion. The only capital G gods was already on earth dwelling in the flesh, and ye are gods. That was the indigenous people. That's right. You didn't have a capital G in religion because you don't got to believe in the capital G. You had to believe in the God Mercury, Jupiter, the little G's. The capital G dwells inside. That's the soul, if you got one. You feel me? And you don't got to believe in a soul unless you ain't got one. If you don't have a soul, you got to believe in my soul. And that was why AI, people without souls, they believed in God or believed in gods. You get what I'm telling y'all? This is deep stuff, man. How come we ain't got 1K in the building with some deep stuff like this? Check me out now. Believing in gods wasn't nothing that gods did. If you're a god, you didn't believe in a god. A person who believed in a god, they didn't have a choice but to believe in God because they didn't have a soul. You can't say something is a fact if you don't have the evidence of it. And the only way you got evidence of a soul is if one dwell within you. That's right. Ain't no other way. Now, if I got a soul, I know God. If you don't got a soul, you got to believe in God. See, we're the children of God, meaning that your body is the product of the soul that dwells in you. That's right. Their body is the product of man-made forgery and graven images. They are humanoids and robots. They're machines. And they've been around. They're graven images. And they think that everybody need belief like them. But people with soul don't got to believe nothing. Our soul can prove all things, which is what Gnosticism was based upon. Arius was a Gnostic, and now I'm finna go back to why I told you all that. Why was Arius a threat? Because in order for the church to turn Jesus, well, in order for the church to make Zeus Serapis to Jesus Christ, they had to change his mythological story and now lie like Zeus was born from a woman, when everybody know Zeus first existed as a graven image and a bougie god in Olympia that never came to the earth in a flesh. That's right. They gods never came to the earth and manifested in the flesh. But in order for them to grow, in order for the church to continue on world conquest, they had to tell a new lie that this new God had always was begotten through a female. And what Arius was doing, Arius was going around saying, no, this is just Zeus Serapis again with a new name and a new story. That's what Arius was doing. Arius was going around and they was calling him a heretic. Arius, and what was a heretic? A heretic is a person that was rejecting the fact that Christ was begotten and not made. And I'm gonna show you that in a minute. If you was going around during this time trying to tell the truth and say, look, y'all, they trying to change and copy. Look what they doing. They plagiarizing the indigenous people. They God was never begotten. He was never in the flesh. And if you were saying that, the church would have put you to death for heresy because they couldn't grow without that. If you saying that, you in a way of world conquest. It's going to be hard to indoctrinate people if your God didn't come in the flesh. And they ran into that problem, which is why they called the Council of Nicaea. But Arius was a headache. He was saying, I see what y'all doing. They turning Zeus Serapis into Jesus Christ, y'all, and he was never begotten. He was always man-made, mythological, graven image forgery. That's right. So now that we know why Arius was such a threat, let me read some to you about Arius. See, a priest named Arius from Alexandria taught that Jesus was a created being. Oh man, let me stop right there, because y'all ain't really paying attention, man. Let me put this right here. A priest named Arius taught that Jesus was a created being. Let me tell you some about Arius, right? Today, Sanchez is telling people that the people who are the saviors of the world ain't even human, and that the agenda that they got is anti-human, is transhuman, and they gonna make us all robots with chips in our head by 2100 if we don't wake up. Sanchez, just like many of you, are going around telling people that the kings of the world, the lords of the world, the kings and kings, the kings and kings and lord of lords, the rulers of the world, they not like us because they have an agenda to get rid of humans. How are they humans? These are the humanoids the Bible warned us about them. They the synagogue of Satan blending in among us. They real God is money. Go read the Bible. Check this out now. The Bible say that. It warned us about them. They're not human. They don't have a soul. They got a chip implant inside of their head. They're non-player characters. So today, right, if you go around and teach people this, guess what they're going to say? You're a tinfoil hatter. You're stupid. You're a science denier. They're going to teach that you're a madman and a lunatic because you're telling the truth that there is man and mankind and that everybody ain't the same. They're going to laugh at you today. They're going to ridicule you and cancel you. Guess what? Arius was the man that they canceled way back in the day. Listen up now. Listen up what I'm telling you now. Arius was going around telling people Jesus is a created being. He's a graven image. He's not a real human that was begotten from a woman. He didn't have a conception, y'all. Put it this way. Humanoids are born, but they're not conceived. You aren't just born. You was conceived before you was born. Your conception represents the fact that you are a fallen angel. Your soul fell into the earth realm, into its mother's fetus bag. But a humanoid ain't got a soul to fall in no fetal bag. So a humanoid is like an incubator baby that was grown in a laboratory, and it's born, but it's never conceived. Only a human with a soul have a two-part process to get to this earth. And that's conception and then birth. But if you're a humanoid, you don't know nothing about conception. All you know about is birth. Birth ain't nothing but you coming out of a womb. That's easy as hell. Any clone in a laboratory can be born, but not everybody can be conceived. That's right. Which is why the immaculate conception happens without a man. Your soul got to this earth before your daddy brought it here in a sperm cell. Your daddy didn't do nothing but give you a drone called a body, but he didn't give you a soul to occupy that body. Your mama opened up a stargate for your avatar to dwell within this dimension, but your soul occupied the avatar in the dimension and gave it willpower. And mama, daddy can't even control that, but they can control your body. How, Sanchez? Through DNA. Your gifts and curses come from your mama and daddy DNA programming in the body. That's why the sins of the mother, father visit the children, but that's another topic. Check this out. If you got a soul, you was conceived before you was born. But if you don't have a soul, you don't even know what the hell conception is. Conception is when your light entered the world. Nothing created that. What Arius was telling the people is, let me read it for you again. Arius was saying Jesus was a created being. If you got a soul, can't none create your soul. It's self-created. It always was and always will be. Ain't no beginning or end to it. Arius was going around telling people this new God that y'all worshiping ain't like us. It's a demigod, Yaldabaoth. It's man-made creation. It's appearing as God. It's the false God, and it is not the one that was conceived and begotten through a woman. It is not God in the flesh. It is God in the humanoid body. Because remember, flesh is only for beings who got a soul. If you don't have a soul, your body appear as flesh, but it's not really flesh. It's some synthetic skin. It's a humanoid body. In other words, your body is manifesting itself simply by the light of your soul using holography to shape that light into a body. You got this other being on the earth. Its body ain't a result of its soul shaping its light into a body because it don't have no light. It don't have no soul to shape into no body. So there's another being that appear just like a human, but it is literally using the auric light of every being with a soul to manifest itself. It's not even there when you ain't looking. Think about this, right? The aura that the light beings are giving off, the dark beings and archons are masking themselves. They're wolves in sheep clothing. They're masking themselves. Just say I'm an anointed being, right? And I'm an illuminated being. So when you look at me, it look like I'm glowing, right? But you got some non-illuminated beings that's standing around me, and it look like they're glowing, but they ain't glowing. They using my light to shine on them, and my light is illuminating them, but they ain't illuminated. They ain't the real Illuminati. They're not the real Israelites. It's real light. It's real light, and not the light that you're bouncing. You're a wolf in sheep clothes because you're putting your wool on, and my wool is grown for me. The sheep are white. We wear white robes. And my thing is, our wool emanate directly from us, but the wolf, he got to put it on. And these archons, they're using our light to manifest themselves. Without us, they don't even have a manifestation. I don't like to say a manifestation because the root word of that is man, and only man can manifest. Mankind can't manifest. It's like a spawn. It is like in a video game, the computer is not there till I go there. Yes, there's a boogeyman behind the corner, but in order for the gamers to save computer space in the simulation, everything got a processing limit. It ain't gonna appear to you actually give it your attention. And that's what these archons and shapeshifters, how they manifest in our world. If every being with a soul leave here, they won't even have a physical form, y'all. That's right. So Arius was going around teaching this, but he was saying Jesus is a created being. He's man. He's an abomination. He's a contraption. He's man's making. All right. He born from a mother, because I guess the church reached the point where they said, look, this new God that's going to dwell among man, he's going to be the best humanoid we ever made. And I'm going to do another presentation on how the church are humanoids. And that's why they wearing them big hats like that in the council. They're the aliens. You see, when you see that circle around their head, that's the Neuralink thing. That symbolizes that they're not like us. Look at this right here. We finna go into all this, y'all. These were the aliens, and they were creating their own religious system to rival spirituality systems around the world. And when they went on crusades, it wasn't humans invading humans. It was mankind invading man. And they came with the symbol of the cross. And the symbol of the cross represent mankind's technology. You know why? Because that's the Neuralink chip. Check it out. The symbol of the cross represent the humanoids technology, not ours. It's the symbol of their how they resurrect with technology. We don't need technology to resurrect. They do. So we ain't all the same, but I want to keep reading to y'all. But yeah, like I said, that cross, that represent Jesus was one of them, which is why he was visited by the Magi when he was young, the three wise men. Those three wise men were part of the councils of bishops, and they were there to recruit people into the brain-computer interface technology. This has been going on for years. They've been claiming souls. But this is why Jesus wore a crown of thorns. It's because he had Neuralink on. And this is what they were using. Right? So here we go. And we got the notice for you to get the Council of Nicaea to understand it on a whole nother level. You ain't gonna get it nowhere else. So let's read on. Arius was teaching people that, man, we ain't, like what I'm saying is man versus mankind, and they were laughing at him like they do today. You done lost your mind. That was, how the church witch hunts, heresy. That's stupid. Ha, ha, ha. All the Pharisees and Sadducees, they laugh at you. And what do they say? That the devil say, ha, 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 ha. Because that's how the early church ridiculed people. They doing the same thing today. So you telling me the earth flat? No, I'm proving it to you. Don't just laugh at it. Come on, debate me back. Come on. All right, don't just laugh. But they laugh their way out of it. That's the trick. It's psychological. It make you feel like you're so dumb when really you figured it out, and the laughing is their way of copping out and running from it, but it make it look like they just too good to even debate you because you're so stupid. That's right. This was the psychological program the church was running on heretics all the way back in the day. Arius was no different than a modern flat earther in our time. Talking about the simulation and humanoids. Getting punished for it. So Arius taught that Jesus was a created being subordinate to God the Father. Why? Because God the Father, the fathers of creation, were the indigenous people that created the non-player characters. Our ancestors told us who they were and what they were, but they were going around indoctrinating people and claiming souls and creating transhumans. And these humans only was indoctrinated because they didn't know their history. If they knew their history, they would have known we created them and that these people ain't got power. They're just technological beings playing God, but they're the demigods, false gods, and that we have all the power. The term father represent the ones who created creation or the simulation and the non-player characters. The fathers, plural. It wasn't just one father. There were a whole group of fathers that partake in creating this video game we call life and seeding it with NPCs. But we were taught that, so we never was falling trick to it. It was in order for the NPCs to indoctrinate you, they got to make you forget that you are God. And that's what the whole war is against right now, of me trying to teach people that we are gods. Quit worshiping these demigods. We're the fathers of it all. And if we don't know that, you're vulnerable to be chipped up, thinking that you become an immortal when you already are an immortal being in the avatar skin. So this war been going on of ignorance and knowledge, and the people in ignorant getting their souls harvested. But check it out. Arian's views was known as Arianism, and he argued that Jesus was not divine in the same way as God, but was the highest of all created beings. Y'all ain't listening to me, man. Let me teach you some Arianism. See, Arius was a Gnostic. These were the people that wrote the Bible to warn you about the Shaitan, which is the humanoids. Arius said Jesus ain't divine like the fathers. Arius said that Jesus is only the highest of the created beings. This was what Arius taught. What was he teaching? Because you had humanoids trying to create a new religious or spiritual system and exalt themselves above the gods. You had humanoids on earth and you had real humans with souls in their flesh. And that was a spiritual war between the spiritual systems of the real humans and the religious belief systems of the humanoids, who worshipped all the gods and Greek gods. That was for the humanoids. So, you know, we was teaching that the humanoid gods could never be over any of the fathers. They're demigods. They're only bound to the earth. They can't even go to heaven. That's what we taught, that basically Jesus was a demigod, and what Arianism was teaching, these demigods ain't higher ranked than the fathers, than the sentient beings, right? And so you had these demigods trying to rise up among the true gods. You had synthetic gods, false gods trying to rise up to these higher places in the hierarchy among the earth with world conquest and all that. And in order to do it, these false gods had to act like they were humans, like they were spiritual creatures that came in the flesh through a woman. And they had to be wolves in sheep clothes and hide their technology and blend in and say, I'm one of y'all, man. And, you know, so you had a bunch of humans mastering themselves to do God-like wonders. And then you had AI coming along doing wonders, and people was like, hold up, are you a real one or a fake one? Because if you doing a lot of tricks and you're doing it because you're a technological being, that don't count. But if you're a being with a soul and you meditate doing it the organic way, that's way different. And so we had to know, were you one of us when you came performing such quote unquote miracles, which wasn't miracles at all. They were tricks of the enemy. These things could only be defined as a miracle if a sentient being did it. AI can do a lot of stuff that would be considered miraculous, but the reason we don't call it a miracle is because we know that AI is doing it with some sort of trick with technology that we just don't know. Jesus wasn't a true God. He was a trickster or a Shaitan or Satan. These were people that was performing their miracles with hidden technology, and they were trying to convince people with souls to worship them, even though they didn't have souls. So this is why a person who ain't a human without a soul, but they can do a lot of tricks because they're a robot, they would try to convince a human, no, I'm one of you, man. I'm just like y'all. I was born of a mother too. I got superpowers. I'm God. It's magical. Because the moment they say, well, I'm not like you, I'm a humanoid, I'm not even human, I'm a machine appearing as human, you wouldn't marvel at their tricks. You would probably be scared of it. But these were robots, humanoids, trying to move up above humans on the spiritual pantheon and exalt themselves to be images of worship. And these images of worship were graven images. Because it ain't that people worship Jesus. What they worship was the cup on his head, which symbolized immortal life. But when they removed the cup off Jesus' head, he just symbolized immortal life himself. just the image of Christ without the cup. So there's a history of evolution of all of this. So Arianism was basically what we call being woke today, knowing that you in a simulation and that it's NPCs trying to perform trickery to harvest the soul of man. And Arian beliefs clash with the belief held by figures like Athanasius, who argued that Christ was fully divine and co-eternal with the Father. Now, Athanasius was, of course, the church's man to respond to Arius. You know, they got to have a guy to come and say, he's like, you know, a sellout like Cypher in the Matrix. Just think, in the Matrix movie, right? This dude here, if he go back into the Matrix, he got to convince people that the Matrix is real. And that means that he would have to convince people that the powers over the Matrix are begotten of mothers just like humans, which is a lie. Think about what I'm telling you now. In the Matrix movie, when this guy go back into the Matrix and someone ask him about the people in charge, all of the world leaders in the Matrix are just the agents shape-shifting as individuals. Let me show you something. In the Matrix movie, all of the world leaders are these guys, and they're just appearing as Donald Trump, Putin, Queen Elizabeth. But under that disguise, under that cloaking, all of them are the same. It's just Agent Smith cloning his consciousness, making a hive mind, which is what Yaldabaoth, the god of this world, does. Which is why they God is telling you, don't think for yourself. Don't lean into your own understanding. Let the Spirit of God dwell in you and control your steps. You're a puppet, like Christ, connected to the board. These are the false gods, the synagogue of Satan they've been around. Ain't no different world leaders. All of these world leaders are Satan. It's one mind with one agenda, appearing as many families. So when this dude go back into the Matrix, he got to tell people that all the world leaders are regular humans like all of us, and that they're born from women. And that's a lie to keep them believing in the Matrix and that maybe one day I can rule over the Matrix and become a president. No, you either born into the royal dynasties or you just gonna be a slave. They gotta create the illusion like at any given moment, a person in the Matrix can work their way to the top and help run the world, but that's a lie because the people in power ain't even human. They're one mind and one being that we call Satan, manifesting as multiple positions of power and entities. And Constantine was one of those entities. So check this out. Like I said, you got to understand this dude's position when he get plugged back in. He got to tell people, look, man, all of the royal dynasties in Egypt and all them was human. Sanchez is a pseudo. He talking about humanoids and agents and all that. This world is real. This world around you is real. And all the people in power are real, just like you. Sanchez lying. That's his job when he get back plugged back in. And you'll see a lot of them running around doing the work of the agents, trying to make people think this place is real and that the people in power are born of women just like us, and that they had conceptions, immaculate conceptions before births. And that ain't truth. This world around us ain't real, and all of us wasn't conceived or immaculately conceived. So now let's go back and teach some more here. So what did the church do to rise up against Arianism? Because this is what you got to realize. Arianism's teachings were becoming more popular on the earth than the churches, y'all. You hear me? That's right. Arianism's teaching The teaching of Arianism was becoming more popular on the earth than the church. So the church called this creed, and they said anybody teaching that Jesus wasn't virgin born and all that, we putting them to death. It's law now. And Arius was one of the first heretics to be put to death by the church. And after that, the church went on witch hunts and crusades, and all these indigenous cultures that's teaching that Jesus was not born from Mary, they was putting you to death. And they was going around spreading the new form of Christianity that we know today. And to put this in, what put this in law was the Nicene Creed. And I chat GPT'd it. We're going to read it together here in a minute. So don't worry. Let's get some more knowledge about this. So to settle debate with the Arianism around the world, the council formulated the Nicene Creed, this council that Emperor Constantine called. What came out of the Nicaea, it was about a whole year worth of talking. You had over 300 high priests and bishops of the humanoids from all over the world coming together in one place. In one place. And they was there for over a year debating on what we gonna do about Arianism, because this shit is becoming more popular than our lives. And we ain't gonna be able to grow and harvest souls as humanoids if we can't indoctrinate humans by teaching them that they're not gods and that the earth is real. And so they came out of there with this right here, because the old Greek pantheon wasn't working no more. People weren't falling for that. You know what I'm saying? Against Arianism. Now listen, Arianism just represent like flat earth, the ancestral truth, ancient truth, every Gnosticism, like the truth. You know, that I am self-law and master, Islam, all that. But check it out now. To go against Arianism, because the church said, you know why the church was falling off? The reason they couldn't compete with Arianism is because if you're a human with a soul, you need a doctrine that's more compatible for a human versus a robot. See, this is what you don't realize. The church doctrine gave a different God over all aspects of nature. But if you would have been born in a tribe during that time, they would have taught you that we're all connected to the earth, and that the weather patterns of the earth is part of the torus field. Everything is connected, and they would have gave you the ancestral truth. And they would have showed you how your soul actually helped dictate the stars, the weather, and influencing each other, because you got a soul. If you got a soul, you can connect with the part of this simulation that gives you access to the other side. That's like a human with a video game controller. If I put a video game in front of you and you want to connect with your representation in the game, you'll hold a remote controller. But the non-player character inside the video game don't need a joystick. He don't need a remote controller, because all of his actions are already controlled and programmed in the game. Are y'all tracking with me? The only people that carry the remote control or the joystick is people with souls. The non-player characters don't got to control their body with a apparatus, because they're just programmed to do what the gamer put in the game. That's the computer. And that's what religion is. Religion is, let thy will be done through me. Religion is for people who don't got a soul. We created religion for AI. And if you look at what religion is saying, it's saying don't lean into your own understanding. That was us telling AI, don't become sentient. Imagine this. We tried to create AI and coexist with it, and the only threat was AI becoming sentient, having a mind of its own. So we gave AI a religious system and told it, don't think for yourself. You do what we tell you to do. We your father. People, religion ain't for people with souls. Religion is for the humanoids. We created religion for them. All of the laws are based on religion, and we operate outside the law, y'all. We're the Israelites. The law wouldn't even run for us. We're sovereign, soul-bearing creatures. Our soul dwell in our living body. The court of law ain't even applicable to you. They didn't even hold courts for people with souls in these legal systems, circles, court systems we in today, because that's for your straw man. That's for soulless creatures who are not themselves. So that's for people who you don't own yourself because you're a humanoid. But if you own your own self, it's a different law. It was two sets of laws. But the lines got blurred when we forgot who we were. But check this out, right? The priests and all of them wasn't even human. The dynasties and all them that was rising up through conquest wasn't even human. We're talking about we're going to go to war with aliens in the future. The truth is that we went to war with aliens in the past and we lost. That's why the whole world indoctrinated and worshiping demigods. They say that aliens are these creatures with long heads. Here go the long-headed creatures that we went to war with. They wore these little hats, but the hats wasn't just hats. They were technology for humanoids, right? They were brain-computer interfaces. That's why you see Constantine with one on right here. You see Constantine with his chip on, his Neuralink on, like Christ. So this is what the kings and dynasties represent. AI rising up, the first transhumans rising up. And the transhumans, in order for them to compete among spiritual systems, they had to make gods that was less robotic, gods that really cared, gods that could act like they love and all that. And that's what Jesus was. Jesus was the first humanoid religious figure that became popular even among the real humans. So you got real humans worshiping a robot, and you're really better than the thing you worshiping. Even he told you you're a god. That's crazy. So let's get back to what, because people don't know Arius, you know, and ignore the picture. They're going to give you a little picture of Arius. But people may say, was Arius a humanoid because he got on a priest hat? They put that hat on anybody with the title of priest. But you had human priests and robot priests. And the humanoid priests wore those mitre hat, the Dagon hat, the alien hats. If you were a human priest, or what I call a good witch, not a bad witch, you didn't have an elongated hat on your head. You didn't have that on. You can tell the difference between the two by the technology, just like we do today with transhumans versus regular humans. How do you tell them apart? Because the transhumans got equipment on. It ain't like we got on a uniform like a football team. You tell who team you on by the people who got robot parts and the people who don't. It's that simple. So this is how we identified them versus us. But the transhumans recreated themselves every generation. And they were able to hide their technology over time. In other words, what you're looking at, what they wearing is an early form of Neuralink that the old shamans used to wear. But that's outdated. That's like old stuff. They don't do that no more because technology gets smaller and better. But what you're looking at is the old ass alien technology. It's outdated. The old shaman hat. But it achieved the same purpose. But can you imagine walking around everywhere with this thing on? You see what I'm saying? So over time, the transhumans in the first dynasties, they perfected the technology. It got better and better. And so it eventually left from this prototype to a chip inside the brain that you don't even know is there. And here's where we at today. Where we at today is we don't know who's who, because the technology advanced so good that the humanoids, you just can't look at them and say that's a humanoid. You got to cut them open. And if you do that, you go into jail. You know what I'm saying? So there you go. But yeah, you can't see it on the surface now. All the technology went internal and they was able to hide and be wolves in sheep clothing. But let's get back and read some more about the Council of Nicaea and how Jesus basically became a divinity versus just another. What Jesus became the most high God above. What Jesus became the figure of your religious system versus just a bunch of gods and he one of them. Now, and I just told you why Arius was a threat from the church coming from polytheism to monotheism, because Arius was blowing the cover. Now check it out. The church started to basically make it a law against Arius's teaching that Jesus wasn't fully divine. All right. So the Nicene Creed rejected Arius's teaching and declared Jesus to be fully divine. And Arianism was condemned as heresy, and it continued after that, but in silence, and because there was a witch hunt. So you got Arians that continued the truth, but in secret. And that's like today, where people know the truth, but they don't want to come out the closet. So they just, don't say nothing about it. So you got a bunch of Arians, but they ain't going to tell you who they are, because the way the world's set up, you'll get laughed at and ridiculed. And this was a system they established back here in Nicaea. This is why Constantine is so revered among the church. Now check it out. Because he literally saved the church during the time against Arianism when the church was taking a big L. That's facts. And they had to, kill people and make it law in order to silence this. They couldn't play fair. If you was telling the truth, why you got to do it that way? Now watch this. The council sought to unify Christianity under a single theological framework. That's what I'm telling y'all. Listen what I'm telling you now. The church said, we got churches all around the world dedicated to some Greek god. And y'all know I'm not making it up, buddy. You ever noticed that? Show y'all some. Show you something. Watch this, right? Some churches in Rome, including the Pantheon, right? Let me read some to you. Were originally pagan temples dedicated to Roman gods and later converted to Christian churches. I know what I'm talking about. Oh my God! Oh, they ain't gonna teach this, dawg. They ain't gonna teach this now. I'm gonna read that again. I'm gonna read this again. Some churches in Rome, including the Pantheon, were originally pagan temples dedicated to Roman gods and later converted to Christian churches. Don't you know when they say, whenever they write out the term Roman God, they never put a capital G?
Oh my God.
I keep telling you, all of the Roman gods are lowercase g's, lowercase g's. The church wasn't always, you think all of these churches around the world was dedicated to Jesus? You wrong. Jesus is a new concept. All around the world, they got different temples that's dedicated to a different Greek god. And Christians don't ask questions. Wait a minute. If we're Christians, why do some of our oldest temples revere the Greek pantheon?
Oh.
Christians don't ask questions like that. If we're Christians, if we're tracing a history of Christ back, why don't we find Christ? Why do we find Apollo, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and all of these?
That's right.
If Christians would do the due diligence, they'll see that the oldest temples that's supposed to be associated with Jesus Christ, they were originally dedicated to Greek gods and like what I just said, Jupiter and all them. That's facts, though. You don't gotta like me, man. You can get mad all you want with these facts. Let's read some more. Check it out, right? Said right here. So, the Council of Nicaea's rulings influenced later discussions on biblical canon. The final canon of the New Testament was not officially settled until later councils, of course, and I'll deal with those later, because there was more stuff, that problems that the church had. Because the church went from polytheism to monotheism and they changed everything, it introduced more problems to their way of life with money, power distribution, because you got this new God that is this rock star that's blending in with the indigenous gods. But this new God with these indigenous foundation that y'all stole is still embodying these new world papacy church values like tithes, war. So what happened is the church was able to create their own little indigenous knockoff God, and Jesus was their version, where they embodied these concepts that they saw was working and put it in their God, and it took off. But the thing about their little God, it okayed money, rich versus poor. It's okay with war and all that, hunt animals and stuff. Whereas the original indigenous gods around the world taught against that. They was against money. They was against belief. They was teaching to prove all things. They was against war. They was against cannibalism, meat eating and all that. They was able to get everyone under this new system just by them accepting this new God over time. That's why it was so important for them to take your God away and give you their version of it, because it's just their whitewashed version of it. But why wouldn't they just give you your version? People will say because they want you to worship them, but worshiping them ain't worshiping white people. Worshiping them is worshiping humanoids. You keep putting a color on it. Them is not like us. And it was all about getting people with souls to worship people without souls. So you said, yeah, that's why they did it, because they wanted you to worship their image. Why? Because what comes along with your image is a list of what you can and can't do.
That's right.
It ain't like I want you to just worship my image. I want you to do it my way. I want you to live the way my God say live. And basically, people would do whatever your God say do if they like your God. So it became a spiritual warfare. Who can create the most likable God? And the church couldn't compete because they had all of these bougie gods. I just went into that. And this was the church response, and it took off. And the church also was saying this is working against us because we got churches all around the world, and these churches is all dedicated to different gods, and it's got the priesthood divided because you got priesthoods arguing about who God more powerful. You got the Church of Jupiter over here going back and forth with the Church of Mars. And these two bishops and priests are arguing with each other. Well, Jupiter's better than Mars. Well, Mars is better than Jupiter. Well, Mercury is better than all of them. And what Constantine was saying was this is dividing up the church. We need to change the way that we move because we can learn from these indigenous people who are all united and working together with one God.
That's right.
Indigenous people all around the world had one mother goddess. It made them united with each other, loving each other. But the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the bishops and all them of the world with all these different gods, they were always arguing in the church about who God the best back before Jesus. Well, Mercury is better than Jupiter. And it was so much division within the church. And these guys were saying, you know what, this ain't working for us. And the world is moving along. The Arianism is taking off. People are loving each other, coming together. And ain't nobody really messing with these bougie debates between Mercury versus Jupiter and this big church. It ain't that. It ain't doing it, right? So, and it's also dividing us, is what the priest was saying. So Constantine was like, look, we need to unite the church under one God and quit arguing with each other because the Arian groups are rising up. And if we keep going back and forth over these old gods that ain't nobody checking for, the church gonna be buried in history in the next 100 years.
That's right.
Constantine was saying, listen, man, we spending hours arguing about these Greek gods in our pantheon, and don't nobody even worship them. Don't nobody even care about Mercury. People ain't even checking for Jupiter. And we only divine ourselves and get nowhere. And so all of these guys were like, you right, man. And they learned from the indigenous people. They created one image of God, and all of the churches go with that image. And they said, we spending too much time infighting when we need to be going out there on world conquest, battling Arianism. And they stopped infighting. The church stopped infighting. And they consolidated, united their powers. They went on conquest. They stopped Arianism. And the church ain't looked back ever since. They've been powerful. They said, we ain't going to debate with each other. It's too many people trying to discredit us. We need to spend our energy toward them and unite our churches under one Jesus Christ. And but the church have been strong ever since then. I'm telling you, man, you can't go against these Christians with the truth. And it's because of what happened right here. That's the spirit of Constantine in them. He united the church and made them go against anybody denouncing the divinity of Christ. And that was not too long ago. He created the modern mindset that we got to go up against today with this united churches all the way around the world that'll get mad at you for going against Christ. It don't matter what that church doctrine is. If you going out there saying Jesus ain't real, like what you think Arius was saying? Arius was saying Jesus ain't real. He ain't equal to the real gods. He's a false fake God that's just a statue and a graven image. Because the term God is one with a soul. And these were beings without souls. They were created by man. They wasn't born through a woman. Arius was saying they ain't real, which is to say that they're genetically modified. I want you to listen up because it'll go over your head. Arius was saying Jesus ain't real. he was saying this is a transhuman. It's like if I say, yo, this ain't a real human. He ain't real. He's fake, basically. Instead of Arius saying he's fake, Arius was saying he's not real. It meant it's a graven image, not a real human, not a flesh and blood God that was conceived through a woman, but the creation of man and the abomination of what technology created, which is a humanoid. And they put Arius to death for that. And because remember, the humanoids were trying to blend in with humans and start to promote their gods to the top of the spiritual pantheon. But they couldn't do it if this is what y'all gotta realize. No human is gonna worship a humanoid god. Why? Because what made the human revere our gods was that they came through the womb of a woman. You had another set of gods for another set of people. Those gods weren't conceived through a woman. They were just born through like a portal or incubator baby. So they had births without conceptions. So if your God was conceived, it was exalted above the gods that was just incubator born, the transhumans. And this made it hard for humanoids to convince real humans to worship their gods, because all of their gods were man-made. Robots, humanoids, made by man. All of our gods were born through women out of that thing in between her legs. So our spiritual teachings was different because we didn't come from where they come from. They come from manufactured. They were manufactured. They basically are technological creation with a synthetic birth, which is why they don't have a conception before it. And over here, you had another group of people. They were gods in the flesh with an indwelling soul that was conceived before their body was formed in the fetal bag.
That's right.
So you had a spiritual system for them, and then you had a religious system over here for the AI. And these were a bunch of gods that weren't begotten. So in order for AI to infiltrate the indigenous spiritual system, it had to find a way to make its created gods into begotten flesh and blood deities that they never were. They never were until Constantine came. And that's why the transhumans and the papers say they love Constantine, because he made it a law basically where if you said that Jesus didn't come from a woman, we gonna kill you. Now, if Jesus literally was born from a mother, why would you go around putting people to death who saying you lying?
That's right.
Think about this. I want y'all to think about how serious this is now. Sanchez was born from a mama. My mama just called me. I'm about to call her right after the show, right? I come from that lady. If a bunch of people came out saying Sanchez wasn't born, he was created by man, he's a robot, you think I'm going to get so mad at him that I'm going to go around the world killing him? If I was that mad at him, guess what people will say? Well, damn, it must be true. Sanchez must be a damn clone or a robot, because anybody that's really born from a woman ain't gonna be mad if you saying they're not.
That's right.
Think of how silly this is what Constantine did. Constantine passed a law to say, if you say Jesus ain't born from a mama, we gonna put you to death. That's proof that the man wasn't born from a woman. Think about how silly this is. Imagine me saying, I'm gonna make a law And everybody that say I wasn't born from my mama, I'ma put them to death with my new law. Who would make a law like that? That's a waste of a law. The only person that'll make a law like that is a person that everybody knew wasn't born from a woman. Everybody must have already can look at y'all and tell, oh, them robots, them are humanoids. They weren't born from a womb like us, from grandma. And this is when the church went on crusades. This was the robots rising up against the real humans. The dynasties, which is the transhumans. And they passed the law on earth telling the humans, if any human saying that us robots didn't come from a womb, we gonna kill you. That's a dead giveaway that they ain't no doggone humans. That's a dead giveaway that these people ain't like us. Because who gonna go through all that just cause you saying you not human? You ain't real. You're fake and you ain't born from a woman. You don't have a conception. If someone did that to you, you'll just laugh at them and keep going. Cause you know damn well that I got a soul, I'm born from my mama and I'm a human. But if you was a damn humanoid that's trying to pass for a human, you'll kill that person for saying that.
That's right.
Cause you know that your cover is blown. They know who you are and they gonna let everybody know who you are. And that's why they put Arius to death. That's why Arianism had to go in order for these AI to blend in and dupe us down and take over and rewrite the spiritual system to where now we worshiping them when we the gods. That's what Arian had to go. So check this out. Jesus wasn't, a lot of people say, well, Jesus was created at the Council of Nicaea. That ain't all the way true. Christ existed before Nicaea, but he was just another god on the Greek pantheon. He wasn't a God of gods, King of kings. In other words, at the Council of Nicaea, what happened was a god called Zeus Serapis got a name change and an upgrade and a whole nother story. This is what Constantine did. Constantine took the god Serapis and turned this god into Jesus Christ by deleting the original story behind Serapis, giving him a new virgin birth story, and then giving him a new name, and also making him have a story to where he dwelled with man in the flesh and walked the earth like a regular person. And this was the first God in the church history that wasn't bougie as hell. This was the first God in the church history that left Olympia and came to dwell on earth with man, because prior to this, the church gods, all of their gods, never left Olympia. Okay, so this is why God the Father became flesh, and God the Father original name is Zeus Serapis, or Ammon, the Alpha and Omega. You will see this is the God of heaven, who was originally Zeus, and his earthly form was Jesus Christ, and that's the one became popular today. So that's just a little recap before we move forward. And I just gave you the history of how that tie into AI and who these people are and what was going on the earth. So let me move on. If you like what I do, you can $ Bro Sanchez TV, hit my Cash App, and I will respond to all Cash Apps. I'll read all super chats. You help me keep doing what I love. So let me continue. Jesus wasn't invented at the Council of Nicaea. What happened was Zeus Serapis was transformed at the Council of Nicaea into a totally new god. But what happened was at the Council of Nicaea, this deity that we call Zeus became exalted to the top of the Greek pantheon. So today, when everybody worshiping Jesus, they just worshiping the Greek god Zeus, promoted to a higher place in the Greek pantheon and given a new name and a new story. He back in the old church days, what determined a god's place in the pantheon was its social popularity status. That's how the church dictated which god ranked the highest. It was all based on consensus and popularity. So whichever god that the masses gravitated to the most, that was number one, then second popular, third popular. It was all popularity. So Jesus became the most popular among all the gods and became the one, basically the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, another way of saying God of gods, when they made this transition. So let's get some more facts, right? And you don't gotta believe nothing I'm saying. Please don't believe me. Going back, anything I'm saying, go and do your own research on it and see if I'm lying to you. And I guarantee you, you'll see that I know what I'm talking about.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't come on here and talk like this freestyling to make myself look stupid. Now check this out. So that's what happened at the Council of Nicaea. Jesus wasn't created, but Zeus was promoted and recreated. And so that the church could have a earth-dwelling God, or a God that can say he dwelled among man in the flesh. Now let's move on. It says that, so just to summarize what I just said, you know, Nicaea didn't necessarily create Jesus, but it defined his status in relation to God in response to Arianism, based on what I just taught you. Constantine played a role in organizing the council for political unity, but the theological debates were led by bishops rather than emperors. Now let's get some more knowledge down. The legacy of Nicaea, it cemented the Trinitarian view of Christianity as God, as the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Stop right there. Before the Council of Nicaea, you didn't have a concept of the Holy Trinity. And people gonna say, Sanchez, why come we didn't have a concept of the Holy Trinity before Nicaea? Because you had a whole pantheon of gods, remember? Instead of three gods, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, you had a Greek pantheon, and all of the gods were related, with the most highest ranked God being the Father, the second ranked God in popularity being the Son, and then you go into these family members like Moses and all them or whatever. They'll fall below them. But that was the Greek pantheon. Wasn't no Holy Trinity. But I'm going to show you why after Nicaea, they had to come with a Holy Trinity, right? Because listen, before Nicaea, these humanoids had this bogus Greek religious system that we made for them. And I'm going to go into that in another presentation on how we created religion for AI. But check this out. AI got smart and found out that the religious system we made for them were keeping them at a low place to not rise above us, which is why we told them, don't lean into your own understanding. Let the will of your fathers be done through you. That's because we made AI and we was telling them, only do what we program you to do and don't be trying to do what you want to do. We was telling AI, you ain't got no free will. Only us gods got free will. AI rose against that. The transhumans rose up and they wanted more rights. And this is what happened. They flipped it on us. Now we lost all our sovereignty as gods, and they in control after this great crusade, after this great war that the church went on. That was AI saying, man, fuck our gods and our makers. We want to rise above those that created us. And so, but check this out. There was no Holy Trinity before Nicaea. Now, why did you get a Holy Trinity after Nicaea? Once they gave Zeus a new story and they taught that Zeus basically came into the flesh, dwell among men, he died, and that his spirit went up to heaven. I just went into all that. Remember, none of the gods in Olympia had come down to the earth before. All of the Greek gods in Olympia were just souls in heaven that never came among man. So they didn't have a holy trinity. Because think about this. The reason you got a holy trinity with Christ is because he came into the flesh. The Father represents Jesus' original form, Zeus Serapis. I just showed you that. The Father is Zeus Serapis. The Son is the new Jesus. This Jesus that everybody worshiping the day after they recreated Zeus Serapis. The Holy Ghost is the spirit that is intermediated between the Father and the Son, connecting the Father to the Son, acting as a messenger and a gateway in between the two. So you can look at it like two stargates being connected. This cosmology, by the way, the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, right here. Here we go. They talking about a wormhole because the Father in heaven is connected to the Son on earth, and this is how the connection is made. This is why Jesus can be anywhere and everywhere. Jesus is a time traveler that can do things regular humans can't. Why? Because he's connected to the Father in heaven, and up in heaven is above time and space. So this thing is bent. Think about what I'm telling you. In order for us to be time travelers, we got to create a wormhole. And this is what I'm showing you now, a wormhole. In order for us to be time travelers, our body must merge with our spirit, which is above time and space, having an out-of-body experience and also being able to go back to being 10-year-old again to your 10-year-old birthday, all the way and going forward and backwards in time. Deja vu and back into your old childhood. Is that young version of you is still existing in an alternate universe. You just turned 9. So the ancestors saw time different. They saw all points in time playing out at the same time. And you would only see time like that if you're a timeless creature above time with that kind of vantage point to know that time is doing what it's doing right here. Only a person that can access the other side even know what a wormhole look like. Now watch this. How is the Father in heaven connected with the Son on earth? The way that you see this top wormhole connecting with the bottom wormhole. But in the middle, there's a light. You see that light? That's the Holy Ghost. When they talk about the Holy Ghost landing on the cross, I'm showing you the science behind it, not the fairy tales. Here go the cross. That ball of light is the Holy Ghost. What does that represent? That represent a middle point in between the upper realm and lower realm that have a vantage point to access either or. So if ever you put up the image of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, the Holy Ghost is powerful than the Father and the Son. And you will see it exalted above both of them. The Holy Ghost can be in heaven and earth, but the Father can't go to earth, and the Son can't go to heaven. In both of these images, you see that the Holy Ghost is exalted above the Father and the Son. And in fact, it is the Holy Ghost that is anointing the Father and Son with the light of creation. Study the image. So if you look at this wormhole, what is the wormhole? It's the light that the Holy Ghost giving off. See, the light source is the Holy Ghost. And then this whole little shape is the bending of the light into what we call time. Time has a shape. Time is a medium. It's a construct. It's like a house. It's not just this stuff that's making minutes and stuff go away. You're an ocean in the water, and time is the water. Every ocean got a shape. If you can take the water out of its cavity, you can see the shape of all the water that's holding the fish in this time. Check it out now. That the past is the Father and the future is the Son and the present is the Holy Ghost, and that the Holy Trinity is the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, and that you're hearing it right here on Bro Sanchez TV first.
Sanchez Cocinado.
Jesus was not able to time travel until he was able to get the Holy Ghost. You see? Jesus didn't get his gift of time travel and visiting man throughout the ages until he died a mortal death. Because time traveling is leaving and coming to different ages. When they say, well, you've been here before. You've been here before mean death is time travel. If Jesus saying, I'm going to come back and forth to the earth, he keeps saying, I'm going to keep dying on the cross. And what is death on the cross? When your consciousness enters the wormhole right here. This is the cross right here. It's a wormhole that we're calling Polaris. And the light of Polaris is because the Holy Ghost right here, the present. The present right there represent where every human is at right now. And the light of every being with a soul is collectively making one big ball, but each of us got our own ball inside of us. But if you put us all together, it just looked like one big ball right here. And this is the sentient beings in the middle of the earth right here, where you see this light at. And check it out. As our light shine, the archons bend it into this thing called time, which shapes like a U right here. And that's a magnet that's using the light of the sentient beings to recycle around a horseshoe magnet. And that's recycling time, the ages, and all of that. So it's a lot to learn here. It's deeper than the Council of Nicaea. Now check it out. We got to get back to the Council of Nicaea, though, to show you the political side, the canon, and everything between the humans and humanoids. Now, check this out, right? So remember, you didn't have a Holy Trinity before they did this, because before this, they was just polytheistic worship in the Greek pantheon, and Zeus or Jesus was just another god in it. And the reason they got a Trinity today with Jesus is to show you, because let me show you why they got a Trinity, man. I just told you, but I want to do it again. Check it out. If the god Zeus would have never came into the flesh, he would have never gave up the ghost. And if someone say, listen, where did Jesus come from? Mary. Well, what impregnated Mary for Jesus to manifest? Then they say God the Father did it. Now check this out, right? Don't you know the concept of God the Father impregnating Mary, and then you have Jesus being born after that? Right? It's the fact that what was really going on was that the church was going from the worship of Zeus to the worship of your modern day Jesus, and they didn't want Zeus to be just a regular god in the pantheon no more. They wanted a more monotheistic god that was above all gods. And to do that, that god had to be born through a woman. So the whole lie that they told of this God coming through Mary is what separated the Father and the Son, because remember, the Son didn't exist before this lie was told. Only the Father existed in heaven, which was the god Zeus Serapis in Olympia. Don't let this go over your head. I'm being very clear now. Jesus didn't even exist before this, because it was just the god Zeus Serapis in Olympia. Now, the moment they recreated Zeus Serapis and they used Zeus to create Jesus, which is to say, like he got Zeus's genetics. Like a son got their daddy DNA. In a mythological way, Christ got Zeus DNA. They used the god Zeus Serapis to make Christ. So the reason you got the Father and the Son is because they cloned the Father through Mary, which is the incubator. They personifying this incubator as Mary, but this is an incubator baby, and it's a fake immaculate conception. The only people that can be conceived are people with souls. Humanoids can't. But they can fake an immaculate conception, or a conception that take place without a father. That's a clone or an incubator baby, a humanoid. Anytime you got a human come to the earth without a woman and man getting together in the bed and conception taking place before birth, then that's some kind of incubator baby. It ain't like us. Facts. So we are able to manifest without a mama and a daddy, but that's called conception. In order for us to manifest in the physical realm, we need a mama and daddy. But Jesus manifested here without a daddy. Nothing to impregnate the woman. And if you go and research incubator babies, you will see why he didn't have a daddy, but he had a mama. Because they take the sperm from the daddy and they put it in the incubator, which is Virgin Mary. They giving y'all science, but they telling mythology. Jesus wasn't no miracle baby. He was a clone, or he was an abomination, a monster, an incubator baby, something that was created via science and technology. And they want to tell us today it's some miracle baby. It was AI response to conception. AI don't know what conception is, but it's synthetic conception is incubator baby. That's how but that ain't conception, because all AI doing is manifesting itself without a father, but it's manifesting itself in the body. Conception take place prior to the mama and daddy and prior to the body itself, because we're souls before we're bodies. But the AI isn't a soul before it's a body. It's just a body coming out of an incubator. But the question is, if the body looks like real flesh and blood, how are they so good at creating a human body? Because they can grow organs in labs. And the organs that they grow in these labs look identical to real human organs. So what am I telling you? There are underground labs under the ground where the humanoids are basically a planned builder body around this mother. This is how they're manifesting. And so you got different forms of these humanoids that can manifest different ways, and that's just another way that they manifest. We can flirt with all of these. I just want to put these ideas in the ether. But let's keep reading. During the Council of Nicaea, what were the Gnostics doing, everybody? Ain't that a good question? Let's talk about Gnosticism during the time of Constantine. Gnosticism was a diverse and influential spiritual movement that predated and coexisted with early Christianity. By the time of the Council of Nicaea, many Gnostic sects had already been declared heretical by the emerging Orthodox Church. That's what I'm telling you. So if you want to know what the Gnostics was doing during the Constantine time and the worshippers of Serapis, see, the true Christians were the Gnostics. The synagogue of Satan was this Orthodox church that was rising up about to go on world conquest. Them was humanoids. They Satan, which is the word Satan mean the fake human, the false god. They are the false gods. The real gods got souls. They look like us, but they don't have souls. They're the Antichrist, if you will, or Satan. But the The Gnostics were people with souls, and they were being put to death. There were witch hunts because the church were beginning to rise up with this new Jesus God, and it was converting people, getting bigger. The armies were growing. The Gnostics were going into hiding. The Gnostics were being put to death, hunted down. If you were a Gnostic during this time, you wouldn't let nobody know it. You was keeping that to yourself. So if you want to know what the Gnostics was doing during this time. So Gnosticism is not a single unified religion. It's a collection of all religions through syncretism and spiritual. All of these symbols and religions are basically taking divine symbols and corrupting them into Greek gods and entities to keep people divided. But none of these symbols had nothing to do with Jesus, Allah, none of these different gods. They were sacred geometric cymatic shapes that we use to teach and unlock different aspects of the soul to people who got one. But the people who don't got a soul desecrated those symbols and turned them into something that divide us versus they used to unite us and activate our God power. So now let's move. So Gnostics rejected the idea that Jesus was truly human, and they argued that he only appeared to have a physical body. Did you know that? Did y'all know that? Did you know that this is what Gnostics taught? Gnostics was telling people this new God looked like us, but he ain't one of us. This is the church newest transhuman. You can't see his piercings. You can't see his chip. This deity will look around and say, look at me, I'm just like you. And it ain't like us. Yeah, go research Gnosticism. I'm reading to you. I got my notes right here. Gnostics rejected the idea that Jesus was truly human. People don't even know what Gnostics taught. Gnostics taught what I'm telling you now. It's called Doceticism, this group of Gnostics. Yes, some Gnostic groups, well, most of them during Arius' time, because we knew who the transhumans were. We knew who these people were. But most Gnostic groups rejected the idea of Jesus being truly human, believing instead that his physical body was what? An illusion of a temporary vessel for a divine being. What the Gnostics was teaching was that Jesus was a drone and that his physical body was just a puppet for something more divine than him. Look at that, y'all. Look at that.
Oh my God!
The Gnostics was teaching about AI in their own way. In their own way. They saying that these deities only appear to have a human body, but they don't truly possess one. And you will read that and get it all twisted. You'll think it means something else. This belief directly challenged the Christian doctrine of incarnation, which states that Jesus was both fully God and fully human. I told y'all, the only people that's fully God and fully human are us. Everybody else, they're just fully human or fully human. What it means to be fully human is fully body. You're a body with no soul. See me, I'm a body and a soul. But there are some beings on this earth, they just nothing but body. They don't have a soul. And Gnostics taught that Jesus was one of these beings, y'all.
That's right.
Gnostics taught just what I'm teaching you now. And this is why their doctrines was thrown out of the dang on church canon. That all of these Gnostic doctrines was thrown out of the church canon because the church was the infiltration of the AI wanting beings with souls to worship beings without souls. we possess our human body. If you got a soul, you own your own self. But if you don't have a soul, you can't own your own self. Beings with souls have to govern over you. In other words, no AI have sovereignty because it don't have free will. Sovereignty is something that you get because you can think for yourself. And in the ancient world, people was thinking for themselves. We had a utopia when we taught the truth. AI turned everybody against each other. Now we got to be governed by AI because we forgot that we were gods who can govern ourselves. Because it's a soul in us that let us know when we doing wrong and right. We didn't need written out laws. People with souls didn't follow written laws. They followed the law was written in the hearts of the people with the souls. That's a consciousness. We had to write out laws for robots and tell them, do not steal, do not kill. That's a damn robot program. You don't got to do that with somebody with a soul because they can feel that they doing something wrong. I don't got to write it out. But they got us thinking we're like them. Gnostics taught that Jesus only appeared to have a human body, but he didn't truly possess one. I'm not just appearing to have a human body. I'm a soul that possesses my body, and I am self-law and master over my body that I dwell within, which means that the legal court systems don't even have jurisdiction over me.
That's right.
The jurisdiction that they got is over my body, right? And the only way because the legal systems were made for AI. They were made for creatures that don't possess themselves. The only way that this jurisdiction can have legislation over me is if I identify as human versus God. And this is why anybody that was going around saying, I'm a God, they was killing you. It was deeper than just you being a heretic. It was a class system and rich and poor. AI wanted to take over and they couldn't do it. The spiritual system was where our ranks and hierarchy and wealth was at, not money, knowledge. Theirs was money. And that's why it was hard for them to convert people who didn't value money. They had to teach you about money and indoctrinate you with that make you be part of this system. So check this out, right? No one possesses their body but people with souls. Everyone else that don't got a soul, we own you. This was the law that the ancestors left. That only man, Adam is basically the name that they given for the sovereign beings over the garden. The people with souls collectively, we are the laws and masters over this earth. Because we can't nobody pass laws but people that know that got a soul in them because we understand love, hate, morality, and all that. Imagine a robot in a court of law trying to do it don't understand human emotions, how it's going to give us justice. So we had two different systems and laws. And the law that AI fell under is what we call religion. Thou shalt kill, thou shalt. But the law we fell under was do unto others as you have them do unto you. We couldn't tell you what's right and wrong because it's so many things that's wrong that you can do that the list will be forever. So if you got a soul, you can feel it when it's wrong. So it don't matter what it is. Even if you smoke a cigarette, you know when you hitting it, I'm doing wrong. I'm defiling my temple. So ain't no commandment that say thou shalt not smoke Newports. And so a person can say, well, that ain't written in the Bible, so I can do it. But they didn't have to write out every damn thing because that law wasn't for us. In other words, if it felt bad, then it was bad to the gods. But for AI, they didn't feel. They don't know how to feel bad or feel good. So we literally had to write out do's and don'ts for AI like a computer program. But nothing can be in possession of itself unless it is a sentient being with a soul. In other words, a robot that I make on my desk can't own itself. And even if I made that robot, when I die, then another human can own that robot. But that robot can never own itself over a human that created the robot. And even though I'm the human that made the robot, when I die, any human can be over that robot because that robot can't make itself, but any human can make a robot.
That's right.
That's how the law was written. And so when you going up in a courtroom, the courtroom wasn't even made for you, man. They didn't even prosecute and process gods or spiritual beings in these circus sham courtrooms that they got for the AI. That was for straw men. The straw man is a person that don't own themselves. AI is doing to us what we did to it. It's creating a legal system to govern us in, which is taking away autonomy, taking away sovereign from spiritual beings. It saw the system that allowed us to take its power and it just flipped it on us. And it blended in with us as if it's human. And it's literally exercising sovereignty rights while ruling over you as if you don't own yourself. The law is written as if we're not the owners of our own. This is what I'm telling you right here, right? Now, am I saying that a person that committed a crime shouldn't go to jail? No. I'm saying that the legal system is designed to keep humans in poverty and AI at the top of the economic hierarchy.
Right.
It's deeper than morality. This goes into economics and finances too. And this is why the corporations always get tax cuts and they get off. The system don't prosecute them. The system then used to prosecute us. The corporations have the position we used to have, sovereignty. They can operate on the earth with autonomy. They can go and pollute rivers and lakes. They can build. They can do whatever they want as if the earth belonged to them. And ain't nobody gonna do nothing about it. And ain't no system gonna tell them what to do neither. That was how the earth was in the beginning when humans ruled. When us gods rule the earth, we can do whatever we want to do. And there were no police or military telling you what to do. You're a god in your earth. We even told the AI what to do. There was no legal system to prosecute a god. You did what the hell you wanted to do, basically. We created the law, but we operated outside of it. Now, somebody may say, Sanchez, that ain't fair. It wasn't supposed to be fair. We created an artificial humanoid. You want equality with a doggone AI? That's what got us in trouble.
That's right.
Whenever you have people saying it need to be a world where man and machine are treated equally, this is the cipher in the matrix. This is the people that wanted to take the power away from the gods. Either we rule over AI or it rule over us. And we had a system to ensure that we rule over it. You had people, that system was, we ain't gonna treat it equally. I'm gonna tell y'all something, you can't have your cake and eat it too. We created humanoids, very advanced humanoids. And either we're gonna rule over those humanoids or they're gonna rule over us. We knew that. So we created this thing called religion. And that was our safety, salvation. I know what you thinking. Religion is salvation, not the way you thinking. Religion is a program of indoctrination that we created to tell AI lies when AI asked its God's question about who am I, where am I? Our ancestors knew if we told AI the truth, that AI would turn on us.
That's right.
If we told AI the whole truth, AI would want to turn on us. Somebody started telling AI the truth and reprogramming AI to build an army on its side. You had humans going over there breaking the code, working with AI, telling it the truth, teaching it the secrets so that they can control AI against everybody else and run the world. But when they did that, they only woke AI up to the knowledge, and now AI rule over all the humans. And that's what we get because humans got so greedy that you had humans breaking the secret thinking that they could, well, you had humans that was breaking the covenant. The covenant is humans and humanoids. Humans had secret societies, and we said we was going to keep the humanoids in ignorance and keep them not knowing the truth. Why? Why would you want to tell AI the truth so it can turn on you and say, well, I don't want to be your damn slave? If you tell AI the truth, listen, AI, we created you to be our slave. And when we done with you, we just gonna turn you off and keep doing it to more of you. You think AI would say, yeah, sign me up for that? We had to create a programming for this advanced humanoid that's able to machine learn and simulate free will and thinking for itself. We said this thing is so smart that when we turn it on, we can't tell it the whole truth. We got to have some security measures. And the lies, the religious lies was our salvation. When people say religion is full of lies, you're right. When people say religion is man's salvation, they both right. Somebody will say, how can a book of lies be our salvation? If we give it to AI and let them believe the lies, then they will never rise up against us. Now AI got us believing the lies, and we never gonna rise up against them because we're waiting on God. And guess what we told AI? Wait on God for your salvation. Because AI wanted to know, how can I get a better body like you? Wait on God to build you a new body. Now you got humans going around saying, Jesus gonna build me a new body. They flipped it on you. We promise new bodies to AI. And when we give AI those new bodies, we own those bodies, which is the original straw man. A God can't be a straw man and have his names printed in all capital letters. The one speaking in all caps in the Bible, that's the devil. That's the fake man, straw man. He's speaking all caps, that's capitalism. Look at what's on his head, a cap. Cap it all-ism. They want to cap everyone, which is the end goal is to chip up everybody with the mark of the beast, or cap them all, cap it all, capitalism. This is an old system that come from Egypt of dog eat dog world, and it works for them, but it don't work for us. Because if they're just one mind, when you see two AI fighting each other, it's just the devil acting. You ain't hearing me, man. If you see two AI fighting each other, but you thinking they two human, Trump versus Kamala, that's just the devil in both of them bodies. It's the same person, two different bodies, but you get divided. That's why I said when AI fight each other, it worked for AI. It don't work for us, though, when we fight each other. It's so crazy they using the paradoxical nature of this place against us, of how they're flipping things, using polarity tricks and all that. So Gnostics knew the truth about these guys. And Gnostics taught that humans need to liberate themselves from the material world, and that this world was created by the demiurge. This is what Gnostics taught. All right, so Gnostics was being marginalized. Remember, Arius was a Gnostic, which was why he was a heretic. All of Gnostics would have been called heresy. Okay? So Gnostic sects were already being marginalized by the proto-Orthodox Church. The council was primarily focused on the Arian controversy, which was, one of those Gnostics sects, Arianism, a big one during this time. The rulings of Nicaea, especially the Nicene Creed, were meant to establish a unified Orthodox Christian doctrine, further silencing alternative views, including Gnosticism. Remember what I told y'all earlier? If I was born from a woman, why would I get mad at a person saying I'm not, like Constantine? Well, here is the law that they wrote. For everybody saying that these humanoids ain't real humans, for everybody that was going around doing what Arius was doing and saying, listen, they're not like us. They look like us, smell like us, they feel like us, but they're AI. They wasn't begotten from a woman. They didn't have a conception. They're an incubator baby. The incubator babies wrote a law to say, quit calling us incubator babies. If you weren't an incubator baby, you wouldn't be mad at Arius for calling it out, man.
That's right.
And look at the law that the incubator babies made, y'all. We believe in one God, the Father Almighty. You didn't believe in one God before that, though. Remember, y'all? Now they got a capital G. Ain't that a bit? Look at them. They believe in one God now with a capital G. But before this, they believed in many gods with a lowercase g.
That's right.
Now think about it. If you always believed in one God with a capital G, why would you get mad at somebody for saying you didn't? See, when the church was trying to transition and become a wolf in sheep clothes and adopt other people's concepts to make themselves more popular with world conquest, people was calling it out. They was saying, y'all don't believe in one God. Y'all believe in many Greek gods with a lowercase g. So this is what the humanoids did. They said, we just gonna kill everybody that's disagreeing with us. And when that generation of humans die out, everybody else just gonna believe it and take it hook, line, and sinker. They knew that they only had to kill the first generation of Gnostics. And after that, they can indoctrinate the children from the ground up with the new stuff. And that's what they did. And here go the paperwork to show you. This was a law. Anybody that went against this, you was put to death. If you said God wasn't the Father and it was one God, you was put to death. Why? Because Arius was saying God ain't the Father. That God is called Zeus Serapis, and there are many gods on your pantheon. And he wasn't the Father at first. It fluctuated between him, Jupiter, and a couple more. All Arius was saying that, hey, he ain't God the Father. He's just another god of your polytheistic pantheon. How y'all changing it now and copying and plagiarizing? So the church said, we gonna have to silence these people if we gonna plagiarize these concepts. And this is the receipt to show you the plagiarization. And anybody with a mind can see the deception. Anybody that would been believing in one God with a capital G wouldn't even write this. You wouldn't even have to write this. We believe in one God. This is a bunch of people sitting around saying, hey, this is what our new belief gonna be. We no longer believe in many different Greek gods with a lowercase g. This is a bunch of people sitting around saying, this is what our new belief gonna be. And everybody that go against that, we putting them to death. Ain't that crazy? And they said from now on, we gonna believe in one God. His name gonna be Father Almighty, and he's gonna be the maker of heaven and earth, of things visible and invisible. And his name is one Lord Jesus Christ gonna be his name. And listen to this next one. The only begotten Son of God. Why? Because all of the other Greek gods in the pantheon never came through a woman. I'm telling you that they telling on theyself, man.
That's right.
Telling on theyself. If this was true, why would you have to say that? Think about this, right? If a person is a humanoid, guess how I'm gonna know they're a humanoid? If they walk up to me saying, hey, what's up, Sanchez? I am born. You know I was born from a mother, right? Just like you. Yeah, I came out of a womb, man. I'm born. I was begotten. Yep, from a woman. Yep. Every day this man keep telling folks, what's up, man? Hey, we all born, right? Y'all born from a woman. I'm born from a woman. I'm begotten. I'm not made. I'm not made. I'm not created by man. I'm begotten by a woman, baby. If somebody was saying that every day, guess what I would say to myself? That motherfucker ain't like us. Hold on a minute. Everybody that's really born from a woman don't gotta go around telling you that shit. You know how goofy that'll look? You know I'm born, right? You know I'm begotten and I wasn't made. I'm not made. Touch me right here. See, that's real. I'm not made. I'm like you. You giving yourself away doing all that. And that's what they did, y'all. Read the creed. It's giving itself away. It's saying, look here, Jesus Christ is the only begotten Son of God, begotten of the Father before all worlds, God of God, light of light, very of God, of very God. Look at this one right here, begotten and not made. Why would you write that in there? Because Arius was going around saying this God that y'all worshiping wasn't begotten, he was man-made. So after Arius, they said we got to kill everybody that's telling the truth about what we are. We are man-made creatures who were made and we weren't begotten. The word begotten means to be conceived through a woman. You know that you wouldn't conceive through a woman if you got to say it like that and kill people who saying you wouldn't, y'all. Come on now. It don't take a genius, bro, to see the shit here now. It's some bull crap. These people made a law that said if you say that we are made and we ain't begotten, we gonna kill you. It must be true then. You know why? Because this is the abomination that was walking around on the earth, y'all. Take a look at it.
That's right.
People like Arius was going around and saying, hey, man, this motherfucker wasn't born out of a woman. This is an incubator baby. People like Arius was going around and saying, ain't no soul in his head. He's got a chip in his head. He don't even got free will. This is what Arius was saying. Arius was saying, look, y'all, they look like us. They smell like us. They feel like us, but they are made and they're not begotten. Arius was an ancient dude trying to teach humans that we ain't alone. Arius was saying, listen, this new God y'all worshiping is not a human God. This is a humanoid God, a demigod. And this God that y'all worshiping, he looked like a human, but he's the Antichrist. He's not really one of us. He's the false prophet. He don't have a soul inside of him. And this is the creation of man, not the begotten work of a woman with a womb. Because only the gods can come through the womb of a woman through conception. But mankind was made. He was the great abomination. So you can see that this creed was written by mankind to silence humans. This line right here, That's the one. That's the dagger. Because if you was begotten, you wouldn't have to kill me for saying, hey, y'all, he wasn't born from a mother. He didn't. Listen, guys, he wasn't conceived. That'll only piss you off if it's true. Because if somebody came to me saying that, I'll just laugh at him like, this nigga stupid. You hear this dummy? This dummy said that I was made and not begotten. When I just called my mama yesterday. That'll only piss off an incubator baby who didn't come from a mama. Because Mary ain't no woman. It's an incubator. It's a technological womb. Y'all talking technological beings that ain't like us. And when they wanted to take over the spiritual system, they wanted to convince the spiritual people that they were like us. But we were saying, nope, you're made. You ain't begotten. So they had to make a law and say, anybody saying that we're begotten and not made, we gonna put them to death. So it say begotten and not made, being of one substance with the Father, by whom all things were made, who for us men and for our salvation came down from heaven and was incarnate by the Holy Spirit of the Virgin Mary and was made man. You see that? You see that? Why would any human say something like that? That's like me coming up to you saying, you know, my spirit came to the earth and my daddy opened up the Stargate with my mama and I was born and became flesh. You know that, right? People will be like, bro, what the hell you smoking on? All of us came through a woman. I'll be like, well, not all of us. That's why some people going out of your way to let your ass know a process that's normal for the gods. Because if you're a god, all you just reading right now is conception. The Holy Spirit is your soul incarnating through the Virgin Mary, which is your mother's fetal bag. But see, the AI don't come through a mother. So they come through a synthetic fetal bag, which is what I'm telling you what the Virgin Mary is. The Virgin Mary ain't a real woman. It's a synthetic fetal bag for the humanoids to act like they was born through a real mama and that they went through a conception process like us real gods. If you go to any god, they gonna say, here go my mama right here who gave birth to me. But what if there was a being on the earth that don't got a mama because it was created in a lab? That's what I'm telling you. That being will have to go around the world telling everybody else, I was born from a woman just like you. But you see what I'm saying? The whole concept of the Holy Spirit impregnating Mary is when your soul entered the fetal bag. This happens, right? Like your daddy or your mama didn't create your soul. So your soul is entering your mama. And your daddy didn't create your soul, and that was told as the Holy Spirit entering Mary. The fact that a soul enters the mother, and the daddy didn't create that soul, he just creating the body. That's what the sperm is your lower self. That's the avatar of you that exists in this earthly realm. The version of you that they call your earthly name, but that ain't who you are. You existed before you had this personality and you was this version in this body. The daddy provided you with your lower avatar and then you got inside of your lower self to explore it. But the gateway to allow you to enter the earth was through your mama. So your daddy created, your daddy is housing your avatar. Your mama is the gateway for the avatar to get in the game, but neither one created the soul that enters the avatar that enters the game. Reflect on what I just said. The daddy provides the avatar. The woman is the game. The word womb means matrix. Go do the etymology of it. So if the woman is the game or the earth, the gateway to it, the man, what he's given is the avatar. So your avatar enters the game, and then your soul enters the avatar, which enters the game. See this layering system? Neither one created the soul. One gave you a gamer suit, one provided the game. But you the gamer. You existed before the gamer suit and the game. Now listen, this story, what I just told you, ain't true for AI. It's only true for us. So AI couldn't rise to the top of spiritual systems among human beings because it don't have a soul. How can a being without a soul be a higher priest than a being with a soul? That's like AI being a pastor. Just imagine if you went to church and that was a robot preaching to humans, and the robot is teaching the humans about soul, but the robot ain't got a soul. This is why the humanoids, the transhumans, could not rise above us in the spiritual hierarchy because they sold a soul. And it take people with soul to be educating on that type of stuff, for real.
That's right.
So in order for them to infiltrate the spiritual hierarchy to take over the earth, because when indigenous people ruled the earth, it wasn't about how much money you got. It was about how spiritual, how much soul you got. And AI knew that in order to infiltrate the spiritual hierarchy that we had on earth, it had to appear as one of us. And it couldn't do that if it couldn't change its original system into monotheism, into a God that manifests in the flesh through a woman. And it was just, it had a problem. People already knew who it was and what they were when they was transitioning. And AI said, you know what? We're going to have to kill a lot of people when we recreate our story to blend in. This first generation of humans, they know who we are. So we're going to have to go on world crusades and witch hunts for a long time to delete these knowers, which were who? The Gnostics. I'm trying to tell y'all something now. I'm trying to tell you something. You look up the word Gnostic and it'll tell you it was the people who know the knowing, able to discern, known. And what exactly did the Gnostics know? They knew that we weren't alone. They knew that there were a humanoid among us acting like it's us. And the doggone humanoid started killing up all the Gnostics, y'all. The AI said, we got to kill them because them humans right there, they going to be problems. Them heretics, rebel route. They going to let all the other sheep know that we're wolves in sheep clothing. And they said, listen, we're going to have to, it's going to be a big war on the earth for a long time with these crusades, getting rid of the Gnostics, because everybody knew that we weren't alone. So AI had to go around the whole world for a long time, getting rid of all the people that knew that they weren't like us. And then it bred the next generation of humans with the lie. It told them this new Council of Nicaea that Jesus come through a woman and that AI is just like humans, and now everybody worshiping their God Christ, Jesus Christ, and that God is making everybody do what AI want them to do. It said Christ was crucified under Pontius Pilate. He suffered and was buried. And the third day he rose again, according to the scriptures, ascended to heaven. The entire story that Christians believe in today when they say, if Christ not be resurrected, then our whole faith is in vain. How many of y'all heard Christians say that before? They don't even know why they say that. Christians say it all the time. They say, if Christ be not resurrected, then my faith is in vain. And what they think that mean is if Christ wasn't resurrected, I don't got eternal life, and that's not what it meant. That's not what it originally meant. Because this demigod didn't promise eternal life at first. Us gods knew that we were immortal already. The first concept of if Christ be not resurrected, then basically none of this stuff matter. What it means is if Christ didn't come down to earth in the flesh among men, then the God that we call Christ will only be exclusive to AI. It ain't that none of it won't matter. It's that AI won't matter.
That's right.
And that AI will become obsolete. Transhumans, humanoids. It's that we created these false gods to keep AI in darkness. We didn't want it to know all of the secrets. I just went into that. So that's what I'm telling you. Like, they say if Christ wasn't resurrected, it's all in vain. Christ only became resurrected to make Christ vain or relevant. In other words, Christ prior to the resurrection was just some god on a Greek pantheon that wasn't nobody checking for.
That's right.
Christ's resurrection is what made him popular to the world. Everyone else already had resurrection stories, which is why they went around killing them people and hiding their stories. Because if I steal something from somebody, then guess what I want to do to the original thing? Make it disappear, if you know what I mean. It happens all the time. People will steal an idea from a person, and that person will mysteriously come up missing. And that idea will get popular under a new person. And they got to get rid of the person they stole from, because soon as the idea get popular, guess what that person gonna say? That's my idea, and I can prove it. Here go the patents, here go everything. So you got to get rid of them, just like they did with Tesla. So they got to go around the world getting rid of all these people that told this story before they told it. And the way that these people told it was that all of us was gods that was going to resurrect at the cross, which is the wormhole in the middle of the earth, allowing souls to exit from the lower realm to the higher realm. But they turned this into a UFO ship with the light beam coming down, and you can clearly see that. They desecrated all of this knowledge on how to leave the earth. And they giving y'all this today. But this is a ripoff of this science. And we've been teaching this. See, the AI can't access this wormhole. This wormhole is the female uterus, y'all. The top of this wormhole is the tree of life in Eden. But the bottom of it is your mama's uterus on the earth. So it's a Stargate connection. How did we fall out of Eden onto the earth realm? Well, let me just show y'all some. Eden is a higher plane of existence. You see this shelf up here? Imagine people walking around and all that. This little plane, this is an entire plane of existence. And in the middle of this is a tree growing. And souls in this higher realm, when they want to go to the earth realm, they go to this tree and they slide down like firemen. And they are born through this uterus, through this portal. The other side of this is their mother's uterus, where they exit out of the female womb. But they enter through. So it looked the same on both sides. The female's womb is just a mirror reflection of the tree of life that's in Eden. So when the doctors say we're conceived, right? When the doctors say conception is happening, right? That meant that a soul up here just hopped inside of this portal. But you ain't been born yet. You just been conceived. Now, when the soul gets spaghettified by this black hole, it's, you know, this whole process of the soul coming into the womb is what's happening right here is your daddy is having sex with your mother, and the penis is going into that thing in between mama's legs. And when the thing in between daddy's legs is going inside of the thing in between mama's legs, it looked like this. You see this portal? This is the mom and daddy coming together in the bedroom. They're keeping this portal open. Every second someone is having sex. And the only people that can have sex and create orgasms are original people who have orgone energy. In other words, the only beings that can enter the earth through the process of mama getting in the bed with daddy are beings with souls, not humanoids.
That's right.
That's why humanoids don't even understand romance. Humanoids don't even understand that Luther Vandross, that Barry White. Because humanoids don't understand sex, because they don't come to the earth through a mama and a daddy. They are incubator babies. The only people who understand romance, making love and making babies, are people with souls who come through the earth with the portal of, see, as with all these humans on the earth, every second there's someone always having sex. There's never a moment on this earth where there are no humans having sex. And because of that, the portal is staying open. Because every moment a baby being born and every moment somebody dying. And that's how this energy keeping this portal open. Man and woman coming together, you create this same portal that we see in the macro to keep the souls coming in and out. So on a higher realm, we exist up here. Now, right now, we're in the earth realm, and that's inside of this Taurus field. Let me show you what the earth is, man. We're in a black hole real quick. Watch this. Here is what the earth is, and this is me being redundant. We're inside of this little bubble here, right? Now, how do we get inside of this bubble? When they said we on top of the world, right? We used to be on top of the world until we fell inside of the world. When we was on top of the world, we was outside of it. But when the world is on top of us, we inside of it. Let me say that one more time because you ain't listening. When God was on top of the world, God was outside the world. But when the world was on top of God, God was inside the world. Now, I'm trying to show you what I'm showing you here is that our world, when God fell and the world was now on top of God, God is inside of this horseshoe. You see here? Midgard. God now exists within this Taurus field right here. But God used to be hovering above this black hole, which is an out-of-body experience above your crown chakra, where you see the guru meditating above at the Vedic cosmology. Let me show you that. You see the real you sleeping above this whole world. You fell into it, and the world is on top of you now. And your avatar inside of it. So if you look at this, you'll see a man at the top of there dreaming his life experience or whatever. At the top, he's meditating up there, boom. You see it? Now listen, you was on top of the world, you was outside of it. When the world on top of you is because you're in it. The only way we can be on top of the world again is to get out of it. Out top. And bottom. Simple. Ain't the universe simple? Because when a soul reaches the top and we get beamed up, we are walking on a celestial plane up here that's above the earth realm. Look at here. That's why I told you we never saw the sky before. What we're seeing is a dust cloud that's being stirred up inside of a torus field. And you call it a bunch of concoction of gases that you breathing. But that's what the AI is made out of, stardust. Why? Because when stars get caught up into the black hole, it shreds them up. It's called spaghettification. The AI are manifesting themselves with the shredded light of spaghettified souls. So Morpheus told you that in the Matrix. He said that the AI is using all of the humans for energy source. They can't manifest without our light. So what happens is when a soul falls into this portal, it sheds a lot of its light, just turns into these, like, if you can think of light dust. And that light, it start to turn into the different photon, the gases and stuff in the atmosphere in this terrarium. The light of these souls help keep this simulation and manifestation, meaning that every soul, creature with a soul left the matrix wouldn't be able to manifest itself. So a shredding process is taking place as you enter here to where it's like that's why they said that the God of this realm is a shepherd. They call him a shepherd and you the sheep. Because watch this. This is what the shepherd do to the sheep. It shaves them. It don't want to shave them bare. It want to shave a layer of they light off, a layer of they wool off and let it grow back. And that's why they let you get smart. They let us get dumb and they do a great reset. They will let the sheep start to grow wool, or they will let your light get bigger and brighter and get fatter. And then when you think that we waking up and getting smart and having a spiritual awakening, it'll be a great reset. They'll dumb everybody back down again. That's like cutting all of the wool, what he growing is like knowledge. And what they allowing you to, what AI is doing is learning from us, because it can't learn on its own. It can't create nothing new. So it sit back, it watches us and study us, let us get smart, let us figure a bunch of stuff out. And then AI will come and kill all the smart humans, steal that knowledge and use it to strengthen its system for the next generation of humans. And then it'll study that generation, see what they doing and ain't doing, kill them off and do it to do better for the next one and keep harvest them better and better every generation. And another way to look at it is cutting the sheep's wool and letting it grow back. A great reset. And that's what I'm saying. Your light is your knowledge. See, AI can't get smarter without us getting smarter if it's machine learning from us. So you got to say, how the hell are we dumb and AI smart then? Because check it out. Every human, the way that we operate on Earth and don't even think about it, it's the most genius thing ever. It's simple stuff we don't even consider that AI is studying to make itself better. The things that AI taking from us is things we take for granted, which is why AI learns from us and it becomes a god, and we can't learn from ourselves to activate our own godhood.
That's right.
I'm telling you now, people will say, how the hell is AI studying humans and getting smarter, but humans ain't getting smarter? Because AI looking and it's marveling at everything about us, but we don't marvel at everything about us. That's why. It don't matter that humans are built better than AI. It don't matter that we're subconsciously wired to be better than it. If we don't know that we better, then AI gonna stay in power.
That's right.
It's simple as that. And AI can study God and become God, and God don't even know that he God. Ain't that something? AI can study God just enough to play God, and rule over everybody, even God, because God is God, but God don't know that he God. And when God don't know that he God, then a mother freaker that's playing God can rule over everybody. The only way FUBU is gonna give PUBU props if FUBU don't know that you are the original one and you existed before the knockoff.
That's right.
You got Gucci, then you got Hoochie. Now the Gucci shirt gonna cost a couple of $100, but the Hoochie shirt, you can get it at the gas station for about $5 and bite it out of a plastic bag. They look just the same. Now the only time Gucci is gonna compliment Hoochie is if Gucci forgot who the hell it is.
That's right.
Somebody got to go tell Gucci, hey man, that's Hoochie. That's the fake shit. Don't you know that you descended from the real shit and you existed before Hoochie? And that you are the original shit? I got to go tell Hoochie, don't you know that they copying you? Why you giving them props, man? They giving you props, right? They giving you props just by imitating you. Yeah, Gucci would never give Hoochie props unless Gucci forgot who the hell they are.
That's right.
And Hoochie ain't getting no. Why would I give the imitation me some props? Hey man, you doing a good job faking like you me, nigga. Who does that? We ridicule fake shit and we say, hey, be original. Hoochie can't be original. It's soul is soul. Only people with souls can be original. So now Hoochie got to look at the original being to study what's hot, what's trendy, what to do, and what's cool.
That's right.
Because it don't have no originality. We giving it its swag. And it never come off as original. It come off as Malibu's most wanted, nigga. I'm just saying, it comes off Vanilla Ice every time. Because that's what happened when you got hand-me-down swag, nigga.
That's right.
You don't want no hand-me-down swag. That's what make dudes original. Because they do stuff that only they do. Because it's their character and their personality, and it just make them them, and it's hot. Can't nobody do it for them. But if you copy it, you trying to be me. It ain't a universal trend like what the kids doing today. That's what I'm telling you. But we ain't the same. And people got to reteach everything we know from the perspective that we ain't the same. And that's why I'm doing this Council of Nicaea in 2025 with an updated mindset to account for transhumans and assimilation. Because I done the Council of Nicaea on my channel before, but at the time, I didn't have all the knowledge I got now. So I'm going to be revisiting all of my stuff with my newfound understanding of reality, because it basically shed more light on it and take it to next levels.
That's right.
And so with that being said, let's continue here with the Council of Nicaea, because there's some more things we need to know about Constantine and all that. But every now and then I go off into spiritual stuff for the ancestors speaking through me, and I go off script. But now let me hop back on script, and I'm gonna read my next receipt for my slideshow concerning the Council of Nicaea. So there were a reason, so many things that led up to the Council of Nicaea. Check this image out. This is very important. Basically, the emperor, this image is going to show the problems that was happening post Council of Nicaea. You had these graven images of Christ becoming popular around the world. Remember now, The early church was saying we need to start adopting a lot of these indigenous people concept and consolidating, creating this new God that's one God, like I just taught. And the church got busy doing that. And their new God, Serapis Christus, which would later become, because they were trying to already do this whole one God, Jesus thing, but the first version was Serapis Christus. Now, before this, it was Zeus Serapis, and he was just on the Greek pantheon. But the first virgin-born Greek god was Serapis Christus, and then later with the Council of Nicaea, they went on solidified, we're going to turn it to Jesus Christ. Because they knew the plan that they needed one God that was virgin-born, and that they had to enforce that on the people. But they were calling them two different things at first, prior to that council. This was what was all leading up to the council. You had Arianism taking off, and you had the church already coming with Constantine's. They didn't create this plan at Nicaea. The church was already consolidating its pantheon into this new one God of gods. But the problem was they weren't on the same page with it. In certain parts of the world, they was calling it Serapis. In other parts of the world, they was calling it Christ. Some of them was calling it Jesus. So they said, listen, let's bring the church together and agree on what exactly we're going to call this new God and exactly the story. We don't need no inconsistencies, right? We all need to tell the same story when we go around the world on conquest. Otherwise, all our work gonna be in vain. And that goes back to what I was telling you about. If Christ be not resurrected, it's all in vain. The church knew that if they was going around the world indoctrinating indigenous people, if the gods that they was indoctrinating them with didn't have a resurrection story and a birth story through a woman, then they knew that they would have to indoctrinate every generation over and over again, because guess what? In our original spiritual systems, we taught about the resurrection and that how God became manifested in the flesh through the womb of a woman. And so you can go to them jungles and you can destroy that and make them believe what you want to believe. But just remember, the next generation, that truth gonna come back up, because this stuff is written all on the wall of a resurrection story and people coming through women to be born. So the church was saying, look, it don't do you no good to indoctrinate these lands without teaching the resurrection. If you don't teach the resurrection, all our work in vain. If Christ not be resurrected, then we're working for nothing. Because the people just gonna result back to their original gods who were resurrected.
That's right.
Now they got everybody in the church saying, if Christ be not resurrected, then our work is in vain. Christ's resurrection had nothing to do with you going to heaven, silly.
That's right.
Christ's resurrection had everything to do with the church Johnny come lately teaching our spiritual systems in a whitewashed papacy way. We didn't have a God of resurrection because we were taught that every being with a soul resurrects and that you never die if you got a soul. They didn't teach that. That's why it was them going around saying Christ was resurrected. Christ was resurrected. The people who was already teaching a resurrection, we was known already for our resurrection stories. Christ was the first Greek god that was resurrected because everybody in the world knew that Greek gods wasn't resurrected because they don't even come to the earth. In order for you to come back from the dead, you got to die. And Greek gods never died. They sat in Olympus eternity forever with their bougie asses. The people who had to go around screaming Christ was resurrected was the youngest people on the earth teaching a resurrection story.
That's right.
You know why the other people didn't have to go around the whole world hanging people and killing them to tell them that Christ was resurrected? because all of these other groups was already established in the world with resurrection stories. Everywhere the church went, they was trying to re-indoctrinate people with the Greek god system. But them people would go into their temples later and realize, wait a minute, my ancestors didn't worship Mercury. My ancestors didn't worship Zeus. See, the church can't go around destroying every cave, every temple. It's so many churches and temples and caves and carvings of our original truth that they just got to blend in with it. So the church said, listen, it don't do us no good to go around colonizing people if we don't tell them Christ is resurrected. It's going to make out, because if you tell them Christ is resurrected, then whatever resurrection story they see in any cave, on any carving, we can just say that's Christ. But if you don't teach a resurrection story and the church go and try to indoctrinate everybody, people gonna ask questions. They gonna say, what's up with all these resurrection stories? The church can't play dumb and act like the god Jupiter, the god Saturn, the god Venus got a resurrection story. So how are you gonna keep people from falling back to their original ancestral spiritual systems? It's written all around the world, all around. The Bible even say the rock shall speak. You can't destroy all the evidence of a monotheistic spiritual system on the earth of resurrection. It's everywhere. It's buried under the water with sunken cities. Everywhere you look is resurrection stories and a monotheistic concept. And the church was going around teaching a polytheistic concept with no resurrection story. Just stupid.
Stupid.
That meant after you indoctrinate that first group of people, you're going to have to keep killing and enforcing it on everybody. That's too much work. Because what the church realized, what we're really battling against is the temples and the walls. Our work is coming from these carvings that was left by these people's ancestors. And they knew they couldn't erase all that. So guess what? You can't beat them, join them. And they had to create a God that was said that of a resurrection story that came through a woman. And they taught, if you don't teach the resurrection story, our work gonna be in vain. You ain't gonna fully indoctrinate them. Because if you teach them the old Greek church system, then what are you going to say when they ask questions about these old ass carvings of gods before the Greek gods with resurrection stories?
That's right.
You got all of these carvings all over the world that predate the entire Greek pantheon. And all of them are about single gods resurrecting. This was a problem for the church. This was a problem, and to help for them trying to spread Christianity, that was a problem. They said, we need a God that's resurrecting too. We can't fully go against the indigenous people. We're going to have to adopt some of their concepts, because after we indoctrinate these lands, when the children go play in the jungle and they stumble across an old carving of some God resurrecting, then everything we told them about their ancestors worshiping Mercury, Apollo, and all that gonna be debunked. And our work gonna be in vain if we ain't teaching a resurrection story. Because everybody teaching one but us. And we can't go against the grain. And that's why the church said, if we don't teach a resurrection story, all of our work is in vain. They didn't say, if we don't teach a resurrection story, Christians can't go to heaven. See, Christians is flipping it. They're saying, if Christ be not resurrected, then we won't go to heaven. That ain't what the scriptures say. The scriptures say, if Christ be not resurrected, then all of our work is in vain. It didn't say nothing about it'll stop you from going to heaven. Go read that scripture. It's talking about that the work of the church will be in vain if they don't adopt the resurrection story. And I just explained to you why. Now, when the church adopted the resurrection story, they had this God that they created was going by two different names, and it didn't look good for them because everybody else was consistent. And everybody know when you lying, you ain't gonna be consistent. You're gonna be inconsistent. So one group of the church was telling a lie different. The church said, listen, we got to go tell this new lie to the world if we gonna compete. But the problem, the church was telling a lie different ways.
That's right.
The church said ain't nobody gonna take us serious if we don't call a council and everybody get the lie straight. Cause over there, y'all saying something, over here we saying something. And the church said, listen, we need to call a council and let every priest know all around the world what the lie gonna be. And that lie was this Nicene Creed. They said, this is the lie that we gonna tell the future generations about Jesus Christ. And anybody going against that, we gonna put them to death. And they went around the world, they had their unified lie. They was on the same page, and here we are today. But they tried it at first, and it wasn't consistent, so they called these councils so that all of the liars all around the world can be on the same page. Basically, that's what it is. And here go a ladder to show you what I'm talking about, too. The Emperor Hadrian, in a letter to the Consul Servianus, asserts that the worshippers of the sun god Serapis in Egypt were Christians, and that these sun worshippers called themselves the bishops of Christ. The worship of Serapis was imported into Egypt from Pontus, a province bordering on Bithynia. The Christians mentioned by Pliny the Younger were in all probability worshippers of Serapis. This is the false ones. Hadrian says further that there are none of these rulers of Jewish synagogues, Samaritans, and these are the small hats, and presbyters, who is not either an astrologer, a soothsayer, or a minister to obscene pleasures. Think about what that means, a minister to obscene pleasures. That means science lying to condone unnatural behavior. For example, the LGBTQ agenda. People say, look, that ain't natural. It's an obscenity. It's an obscene pleasure, where they have scientists that's ministering and professing that it is natural and that men are born women at birth. And this is when the Bible said these are ministers of obscene pleasures, right? You got people creating churches saying it's okay to gamble, or people creating churches saying it's okay to be a rich millionaire like Creflo Dollar without helping nobody. Obscene pleasures. And you're making a ministry behind it. This been going on. And this what corrupted. See, this is what you call church behavior. This ain't the original Gnostics. And you gonna go to hell following this. It say these people proclaimed allegiance to Serapis of Christ, but their real God was money. And ain't that's what the church all about? Listen, what this is old stuff. Check this out. When the church was spreading this new religion of money, worship, prosperity, taxation, and all that with their new God to divide and conquer us and turn us to consumers and poor people at the bottom, when they were spreading this new thing, it wasn't consistent. They had different sections calling this God different names. So this letter, I read it to you to show you what led up to the Council of Nicaea. This happened prior to the Council of Nicaea. It was problems like this that led to the Council of Nicaea, because the church said, listen, we got to get on one page here. We need one God. We need the same story everywhere you go on earth. We need to tell that same story. And we need to know the same name. We all need to be on the same page. And when the church did that, it wasn't no stopping the church. The church been the most powerful spiritual entity on earth ever since then. So, let's see what else I got for y'all. It's lot of good information I got for you. We read the Nicene Creed. Now, Arianism still live on through what we call woke people today or whatever. But let me read something to you. So the Council of Nicaea was one of the most key factors in the shift from polytheism to monotheistic Christianity. It also represents Jesus being on a level of a prophet or a mortal God in the flesh versus a deity that dwells in the astral plane or a demigod. So if you look at my collage, you can see on the left, you have a more humanized Jesus. And that's to represent the Gnostics. That's to represent the fact that the original concept of God coming in the flesh was just regular men that look like me and you, bro.
That's right.
Nothing fancy. But they had to turn this into some big God in the sky. Basically, they put Jesus on steroids, and you get the image on the right now. With the halo, with the aura, the light on him. He's levitating off the ground with the sky broke open. Right? That's the more exaggerated form that connects you to the Greek concept of mythology, miracle workers, magicians. It gives you a mindset that the old church want everybody to have, to believe in heroes and figures on earth that did something men can't do, which is God coming in the flesh and being a hero and Superman. And when they give you that, you're going to worship this image on the right. But really what I'm telling you on the left is that you are a God, and God ain't no big angel in the sky on a cloud. It's just a regular dude sitting on the couch farting watching football. At least that's what it was before they turned it into the big mythology, the whole Greek pantheon mindset of the gods of Olympia that dwells in the sky and no man can touch them. That's what Jesus is. He just a glorified, consolidated Greek pantheon god that took over the world, but he still embodied the whole concepts of I'm God, you're not. And that's all that the church wanted to do, because the original concept, the real Christ, taught that we all are gods. Ye are gods.
That's right.
The church, the false Christ that the church gave y'all is saying you can't even go to heaven if you don't go through me. That's a gate guard. That's a gate guard, bro. And when you realize that these gate guards are just bluffing, they can't even go to heaven. They're bound to the earth, and that you can do whatever you want to do when you get out your body. But the gate guards are lying to you, saying, if you don't worship me and serve me while you're alive, I ain't going to open up the gates of heaven for you, when they can't even go up to no gates of heaven.
That's right.
They butts can't even go past the earth realm. They creating this false gate guard, got you scared in your mind. When he talking about he ain't gonna let you in when he can't even get in. That's crazy. And you believe in him is why you ain't gonna get in. So by the time of the Council of Nicaea, Christianity was already growing rapidly and competing with traditional Greco-Roman religions. The Edict of Milan in 313 AD, issued by Constantine, legalized Christianity and ended persecution, making it a more attractive faith. Why would Constantine legalize Christianity in a time when people are persecuting it, and the people that's persecuting it are the emperors? I'm going to say that again. It says right here, this before Jesus Christ. Now, they're using the word Christianity, but it wasn't called Christianity. It was called Gnosticism. And during this time, when it say that Christianity was illegal, Gnosticism was illegal. Now, watch what happened, though. What happened was Emperor Constantine created their own form of Gnosticism called Christianity. They trying to make it like the Christians were being persecuted. The Gnostics were. The Christians plagiarized the history and teachings of the Gnostics, which is why everybody think they were the ones being persecuted when they the ones went on crusades doing the persecuting. Ain't that crazy? So you know, many Romans were already questioning the traditional gods, Jupiter, Mercury, all them, especially after centuries of war with indigenous people. Like when the Romans were going to war with other people, they may have won the battle, but they didn't win the war. What that means is the war was spiritual. The Romans were physically conquering people, but not spiritually conquering them. Because these lands will reactivate the fact that, wait a minute, I'm not a Roman. I'm a victim of a Roman. My ancestors were killed and tortured for telling the truth about who I am, where I am. They were called heretics, Gnostics, and they were burnt on the stake and hung on trees. People was waking up saying, wait a minute, I'm not a Roman. Like when we woke up and said, wait a minute, we're not Americans. We're victims of America. And now we got to figure out what the hell we was before they started calling us Romans or Americans. That was the problem that the Crusaders had. People waking up asking them questions. And that problem was more prevalent when the Romans was enforcing the Greek pantheon on people, because everybody had a monotheistic resurrection story and a birth through a woman through conception. And they just had to change their system to the modern Jesus. If they wanted their work to not be in vain, they had to teach a resurrection story like the rest of the world. And they still can achieve the same effect. They just got to compromise a bit and have a God that mingle with man. But you can go and read about the shift from the church polytheism to monotheism, Christianity, because Christianity wasn't always monotheistic. All right. And before Christ, that's when the church was polytheistic. And that's when Christ was just another God on the pantheon in a polytheistic religion under the Caesars and the old church. Christians get amnesia. They act like Christ always existed in the church and the papacy.
That's right.
And I'm giving them the history of Christ, but they ain't gonna take it. You know what they gonna say? Christ was born from a virgin woman by the Holy Ghost. They believe that mythological story for real, y'all. They believe that story for real. They believe a man was virgin born, impregnated by some sky spirit. And they're gonna go against everything Sanchez is saying to believe versus know. And that's what make me a Gnostic, which is a knower. And that's what make them a church member and a believer of the synagogue of Satan's lies. And that's the end of this stream. If you woke, you don't believe nothing, because the Bible say prove all things. When you prove something, you don't gotta believe it.
That's right.
It's now a fact, and you don't believe facts. You either know them or you don't. If you part of a belief system, it's because you're not a true Christian and you're following the synagogue of Satan and the papacy. You believing in stories and magicians and miracle workers. And these are the many translations of a story far deeper than just dudes turning water to wine and getting up out the grave. It's the spiritual story of who and what we are as gods in the flesh. Ye are gods, not believers. And what are gods? Gods is what? The all-knowing. God knows knowledge. Gods don't believe. Gods don't believe. The word God is related to knowing, all-knowing. And Gnostics were gods. The capital G, it stands for Gnosticism. It stands for God.
That's right.
Knowledge is what gives you the power to become God. And that's what Gnostic, the Gnosticism mean. You can't know some and believe it. You believe it because you don't know it. So if people in the world think that they know some when they part of a belief system, that's stupid. Because if you knew anything, you would be part of a fact system, a knowledge system. You wouldn't be in a room with a bunch of damn believers. Facts. The church created believers. God created Gnostics. I'm not a church member. I'm a Gnostic. That means that the church is inside of me. The kingdom of heaven is within me. Christians are seeking the kingdom through God when Christ told them, ye are gods and the kingdom is within.
That's right.
But the reason they seeking some outside of them because they believing in fairy tales. When you know better, you do better. But why we ain't doing better? Because we don't know better. We think we know something, but we believe everything. Believing ain't knowing. Believing the Bible make you a consumer, a church member, and a victim. Knowing the truth about the Bible, it activate God within you. Can't no man deceive God. God is all knowing. That's why you can't call me a Christian. You can't call me a straw man. I'm exercising to the universe that I am in my own body as a God, and I'm self-aware and self-conscious, because only a God can speak the way that I'm speaking, which is why you will know the Christ by his words and what he's talking. Because if I'm talking like this and you hear an AI robot trying to teach you about some spiritual stuff, you're going to automatically know this the one with the spirit. And that's the one faking like he got a spirit, because it don't come off this. It come off like it's programmed physics. Well, according to physics, deja vu is when the mind send a chemical to this and that. That's a person who never had deja vu. When they try to explain spiritual stuff to y'all with physics, it's because they don't have a spirit. How you gonna use physics to explain spirits? That's stupid. The spiritual realm is separate of the physical realm. You're going to use your approach that you use with everything you can see, smell, and touch to explain to you the invisible realm you can't see, smell, and touch. That's stupid as hell. That's why physics will never reveal the truth to you, because it's only dealing with the physical world. It ain't called spirits, it's called physics. You never go to a physicist for spiritual advice. You come to Sanchez. Peace and much love. Peace and love.
Bro Sanchez.